Hello and welcome to the Yggdrasil podcast. I am your host, Ratatosker, and today I'm very happy to have Rurikhan on my podcast. Thanks for coming, Ruri.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm used to being on the driver's seat for most of these podcasts because I do a lot of them, but I very rarely get invited back. I guess people don't like talking to me.
I think just most people don't have podcasts, right? They don't do shows like this.
Yep, true.
The only reason I have a show like this is because I saw you doing the Third Fleet podcast with Gaijin, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to.
Oh man, that was the inspiration. I kind of thought that your show predated the Third Fleet podcast because I remember seeing it, but I
No,
guess
no,
that was like the Mandela effect or something.
no. I didn't even start getting into YouTube until about 2.5 years ago. So I like really one of the first few things that I saw when I was getting into YouTube stuff was your channel doing Monster Hunter World content.
Well, that's pretty cool.
A lot of my things I do on my channel actually are just modifications of things you do on your channel. Like I would never have started streaming events if I didn't see you start streaming events. And I stole your whole format too, like the
Yeah, I remember us talking about that at some point
yeah.
with the whole thing about starting a little bit earlier and all of that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, because people like that. That you were right. It's like, oh, that's genius. When I saw that, I was like, oh, that's genius. People love doing that. They like getting excited and talking about the thing they're about to see. They love doing that. It's perfect.
Well, I'm very humbled.
So, what have you been up to? How things been?
Dude, August has been just like potentially the most busy month of my entire YouTube career, like August
Yeah.
2023, because it's just like so many games coming out all at once. And even before that, because I kind of feel like with me, it started all the way back in May
Hmm.
because I streamed the entirety of Tears of the Kingdom,
Hmm.
then went on to stream the entirety of Diablo 4, then went on to stream the entirety of whatever it was that came after Diablo 4 because it's just like all one big blur at this point. And then we got friggin' Baldur's Gate 3, which I wasn't even sure if I was gonna check out or not, which I'm very happy that I did. And then there's a game in there that you probably don't even know about that I also covered, which is Wayfinders, which I like. It's one of those free to play grindy games. And then Armored Core 6 into Starfield
Yeah.
and now into Lies of P. And
Right.
it's just been back to back stream everything, which is incredibly unhealthy. Let me tell you, it is very unhealthy.
I don't. I typically don't cover as much as you do, and I don't. I definitely don't stream as much. I'm far lazier. But even before I started doing YouTube, I would play maybe like 5 to 7 games a year, maybe. Um, but even for me, it's exhausting. I was just exhausted this year from all this stuff. I almost am overloaded with the number of games. It's not just the number of games; it's the number of games that I was interested in, and I'm not interested in everything. Uh, and then things that caught me by surprise that I thought I wasn't going to be interested in that did get me interested, like Baldur's Gate 3 is prime example. I really didn't think that was going to be that great, and then it turns out that people are it's so good that people are talking about, people are worried that it's going to be the new standard, and some people say it should, and some people say it shouldn't. There was a whole debate came from how high quality it turned out to be.
That argument to me was completely hilarious. Like the whole people basically trying to say, "Oh, we can't make this be the new standard," and I'm just like, "Why? Why can't this be? Because it's too good. We can't expect video games to actually be good." Like to me, the standard that I actually really appreciate Baldur's Gate 3 setting is like, hey, look, here is the full game. There's no microtransactions. The
Hmm.
whole thing is here. And if you look at the history behind Larian Studios, they're going to be like iterating on the game for quite some time to come. Eventually, they're going to do like a definitive edition, which, if I'm not mistaken, most likely will end up being free for the people that already bought the game,
Hmm.
at least taking into their previous history with Divinity Original Sin and stuff like that. And that to me is the real standard that we should be striving for. Hey, here's a full game. You pay, it was $60 on PC. I believe it's like 70 on consoles. I'm not sure what it's like in the US, but it's 70 euros here.
Hmm.
But just the fact that it's $60, not 70 like everybody else is trying to make in the industry. And not only that, but it is an extremely high quality game. Even though nowadays a lot of people actually think that I don't like the game, which is funny too.
Why do people think that?
Well, I made a video, and whenever you make videos on YouTube, you have to try and come up with, unfortunately, a big portion of a video is the title
Hmm.
and the thumbnail, because those are like super important. So you have to try and do something that is attention grabbing. And I wanted to do some criticism about some aspects that I didn't like about the game. And so I came up with the idea. I loved Baldur's Gate 3 until I didn't.
Oh,
And everybody thinks that I hate the game. And people took the criticisms that I made of the game completely the wrong way, even though I distinctly clarified in my video. But, it is what it is. I still think Baldur's Gate 3 is a fantastic game. And in the future, when I'm not so overloaded from, we had these two big RPGs back to back, Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield.
hmm.
So right now I'm a little bit overloaded of big RPG narrative driven games. So I don't want to just jump back into Baldur's Gate 3 again, but I want to give it some time to breathe. And then I want to jump back in and do a Dark Urge playthrough because I didn't do Dark Urge first time around. But yeah, as a matter of fact, as I was playing Baldur's Gate 3, I started my first character and I already had plans for like 3 more characters that I wanted to do, which is the mark of an excellent game.
I have you finished the game?
Yes.
I have not finished the game. When it came out, Armored Core was right after. I had
Yep.
no time. It's like I can't not play Armored Core, so I had to put it down. And then Starfield came out, and there was another game in between called Sea of Stars, which I was very excited for.
Oh yeah. The reason I haven't picked up that one yet is because I want to buy the physical version,
Mm,
because that game I think is coming out with a physical version next year at some point. It's the same thing with Chained Echoes, which is somewhat similar to that one.
yes,
I also already bought Chained Echoes, a physical version, but they haven't even manufactured
I
it
see.
yet. So it's like I'm sitting here waiting. It's like, hey, I want to play Chained Echoes and I want to play Sea of Stars, but I want to buy the physical versions on Switch because I just like having those JRPGs physical.
Yeah, yeah, they're Chrono Trigger likes. They're those types of games that got inspired by Chrono Trigger, and I really like Chrono Trigger. I had fun with Chained Echoes, and I also enjoyed Sea of Stars.
Yeah, but so you haven't finished Baldur's Gate 3. How far did you make it so far?
So here's the funny thing. I just started back up. I'm like, all right, I'll stream the rest of my playthrough. I started back up, and I'm still apparently in Act 1 because I wanted to. I play like a Roomba. I don't like missing things, and I also don't save scum
Yep.
or metagame. So I want to get as much as content out of it without looking things up and without knowing things. So that's my preferred way to play. And so I want to go to the Crash, so I go to the mountain pass, and it says, don't go any further or you're going to, activate some stuff and things will be gone. So I'm like, all right, I'll explore everywhere else except for the mountain pass until it tells me, it's dangerous to keep going. So I go to the Underdark and I go to the Crone's cabin and I explore everywhere. I do the Dweger area, and I was like, when is this going to end? I'm still in Act
Yeah.
1. It's just like endless. There's no matter how much I do, there seems to be more and more. And so finally, I got to the point where I think there was nothing left. And I go back to the Crash. Now, the Crash is a whole big thing. There's a giant quest line in the mountains before you even proceed past the mountains in the monastery. And that's where I'm at right now.
Damn. So I actually did all of that stuff that you're talking about. And then I went in and I did a decent chunk of the part after the Underdark.
Mhm.
And then I went and I looked for the Crash as well.
Right. Right. Because I really enjoy the storytelling. Like the Crash part has been my favorite, most interesting part. You get to talk to Lae'zel's patron, Vlaakith, and
Oh, yeah.
discover more about it. First time I actually learn a little bit about the artifact is in this area, and I really like Lae'zel.
By the way, are we discussing spoilers and stuff like that? Like, I'm not going to go
I will
beyond the part that you've done.
Yes,
I just want to make it clear because, some people are like, oh my God, spoilers.
I will put a spoiler warning on screen, I guess, before I started talking about all that. I didn't think of it.
Yeah, okay.
But obviously no spoilers past the point I've been.
Okay.
But like, I like the voice acting. Like I like the acting that they're doing. This was something that I was thinking about the more I played Starfield. I had fun with Starfield. I played it for a decent amount of time, but I couldn't help thinking about as I'm playing it, where I'm looking at these dead eyes, looking at me, thinking about Larian Studios' um, motion capture for like hundreds and hundreds of random NPC. Any rando you meet on the street has motion capture and voice acting that's just of the highest quality in comparison. I was like, man, I can't. It's like it does kind of set a new standard. I feel like I can't go back to
Exactly.
yeah.
Which in a way is why the whole discussion ahead of the game, not was it ahead of the game releasing? I feel like it was ahead of the game releasing, but that's the reason why the whole discussion is kind of mute. It is going to set a new standard, whether people like it or not. It's just
Mm.
that simple. It is going to bring in comparisons and all of that stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that people can't enjoy both games, which is kind of like something that I've been noticing on Twitter a lot. Is there's this idea that in order for my game to succeed, your game has to fail and it has to be bad. There's people that haven't even played, for instance, Starfield, and they're like, "Oh, game's a 2 out of 10." It's like you haven't even played it. Like, what are you talking about? It's very weird to me. Are there so many people that are super comfortable just like pulling random numbers out of their ass, and these same people will be going like to IGN or something like that and going like, "Oh my God, clearly the reviewer has no idea what he's talking about." It's just a weird thing. This is one of the reasons why I don't really rate games. I just talk about, I like this thing, I don't like that thing. I think that reducing a game to a number is not necessarily a positive thing for anyone involved.
I don't like the number rating system for
Yeah,
many reasons. But one of the primary reasons is that you can't use any of the lower numbers. And there's tons of people that don't think there's such a thing as a 10 out of 10. So like some people don't think that you should rate a game a perfect score. And it's
because
impossible.
nothing's
Yeah,
perfect.
because nothing's perfect. And then some people think that you should never give a game like a 5. It's like, why do you even have a 1 through 5 if no game
Yeah,
ever
exactly.
warrants like the average Metacritic score is like 8, 7 and 8, so between 7 and 8. It's like, well, at that point, like this whole thing is you might as well cut off everything below 7, uh, and use that graph. So 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then you can use those numbers to because those are the only ones you're using anyway.
Yeah, it's just a weird thing with the numbers and whatnot. To me, it's much more important for people to be aware of who is the person that is playing the game, who is
Mm,
the person that is providing this critique, so that I know their point of view. Which is why, like, before I did like 2 videos. One is like, oh, here's my impressions after 40 hours, because it was going to take a long time to actually finish the game, and then I did one after I finished the game and was almost done with the first New Game Plus cycle because I wanted to explore the New Game Plus system. And in both those videos, I'm like, listen, I don't really do Bethesda games. I don't like Skyrim because I think the melee combat in Skyrim is atrocious. Fallout, I think, is fine, but the setting of Fallout doesn't really appeal to me. So that people know where I'm coming from and what the viewpoint is that I'm bringing into the discussion.
one other thing that I was impressed with Baldur's Gate 3 is that it got all this sales, it got all this buzz and popularity, and people love it. And I'm like, I wasn't even aware there were this many people that liked turn-based RPGs and like turn-based CRPGs, like classic RPGs like this. It's like I wasn't even I thought this was a niche within a niche kind of. And it turns out, oh no, you just needed people just hadn't seen the right one. They hadn't experienced the right kind of this version of the game.
I think it is a niche within a niche. It's just the problem, not even a problem. It's just the fact is when something as big as Baldur's Gate 3 comes out, people start to take notice because they've done a fantastic job with Divinity Original Sin 2.
Mm, mm,
Now, with Divinity Original Sin 2, I never played it alone, but I got invited by a group of friends to play with them. And so we did like a full 4-player co-op where we're almost role playing. It was almost like a proper Dungeons and Dragons session
mhm.
in Divinity Original Sin 2. And that was a fantastic experience. Like I loved it. This is amazing. This game is awesome. So to me, it was a no-brainer that Baldur's Gate 3 was most likely going to be good. It was just a question of, am I going to like it? Because I've played Dungeons and Dragons before, like actual tabletop Dungeons and Dragons, and I love that. but it's a matter of whether or not a game can capture the freedom that you can have
Mm.
in Dungeons and Dragons. And that is one of the things that Baldur's Gate 3 does exceptionally well, but mostly throughout the first two acts. Because, in my opinion, once you get close to the end of Act 2, I felt a lot of that freedom taken away. And I've had tons of discussions with people about that. But, that's just the way that I personally felt about it.
I've heard that a lot, actually. I've heard tons of people say that not only does the quality of everything drop in the third act, but also the bugs increase a lot around
yes. Very much so. Like there's a lot of stuff in Act 3 which I'm hoping that they can remedy maybe before you'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stuff in Act 3 that was very much immersion breaking. Like because that's the thing about Baldur's Gate 3. It's a game that is of such high quality that it sets a new standard even for itself, which is maybe not the best thing. So like Act 3 has bugs, right? At least it had the time I played. I don't know because they've patched the game a bunch by now. But like it had bugs, and those bugs, when compared to the rest of the game, actually look a lot worse than they would if they were just like in isolation. Like if the rest of the game wasn't as good, then Act 3 wouldn't be such of a problem. The problem is the rest of the game is so excellent that when you get the contrast of what comes afterwards, it's just like, God damn it. It's frustrating on top of it,
So definitely my positive feelings for Baldur's Gate 3 comes from my Act 1 experiences, which just are fantastic, just phenomenal.
It is.
But I heard from somebody that has played Divinity Original Sin 2 to completion and played it on release that the same kind of thing happened with Divinity Original Sin 2, that it had an excellent beginning, and then as it progressed it got worse, and they kind of rectified it with the complete edition that they added later.
Edition,
yeah. And so they're suspecting that they're going to do something like that for Baldur's Gate as well.
Yeah, that's what I would expect, which is one of the reasons. Well, like I said, I'm letting it simmer down a little bit, breathe a little while, get some R&R as well for myself, and then eventually jump back in to do the Dark Urge playthrough, which I'm super excited to jump in again. Because again, like I said, I had plans for... I started the game and I decided I'm going to make a bard because I love just talking my way out of bullshit. And the stuff that you can do as a bard in that game, you have no idea. It is hilarious. I love, not to mention that in between every combat turn, so performing is an ability that you can do, and it doesn't use an action or a bonus action. You can just perform at the end of your turn.
So he's playing the lute.
I would end the turn and start playing the lute every single time. And it's great.
When you do your dark, I'm a Dark Urge right now. That's my first playthrough, but I'm a good Dark Urge. I'm a Dark Urge.
Oh, you're a good boy.
Yeah, that's trying to resist his evil nature, and I've actually like it. Like it's an interesting dynamic because he's a paladin too, so it's a Dark Urge paladin that's trying to be good. And I've actually really enjoyed this. I think I may even like this more than being a murder hobo had I chosen the other one.
The thing that really appeals to me when it comes to these games is seeing if I can do like a gray playthrough where it's like in some situations, I just want to kill this dude, screw this dude, I don't care.
Yeah.
I want him dead. So like I'll kill him. Or another situation, I'll be like, oh man, I really want to help these people out. So I'll help them out. That's kind of the way that I don't like going
pure one
too
thing
far.
Yeah,
pure one thing or pure the other. I like navigating the middle because I find it's more interesting that way. So for instance, I don't know if you spoke with the goblins or something like that, but I'm playing a dwarf. And so it's like, no, I don't negotiate with goblins. I went in there and I butchered all of them. Every single one. I didn't even know that you could ally one of the characters that's like one of the goblin bosses, whatever. You can ally with them and they can join your party. I didn't even know that. I just killed her. It's done.
My friend, I also played with friends. So while I was playing my own playthrough, I would occasionally join my friend's game and play with him because he doesn't have as much time to play. So whenever he'd have a moment, we'd play together. And I'd usually be ahead of him. And so when he got to the Goblin Fort, the girl I think that you can recruit, we were just having so much trouble in the Goblin Fort. He decided to fight, but we play on the harder difficulty, and we're
Ooh.
just struggling through. We're struggling to carve our way through this fortress. So we're like taking up pockets of goblins. Here's a pocket of goblins. Here's a pocket of goblins, and so we finally just need to take out the woman, the drow, and so he casts Cloud of Daggers on her as she's going on a bridge, and the bridge collapses beneath her, and she just dies. And we just skipped the whole encounter. It's like, oh, that was fucking awesome. That was amazing. That was incredible.
I used the amazing art of Barrelmancy to deal with both her as well as at least one of the other bosses.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the art of Barrelmancy. It's an amazing art.
I had a barbarian that threw those. You just chuck those at people.
No, it's just a fun way to do encounters when you're kind of like weak at the beginning of the game, because I was definitely way too weak to deal with all those, and I was playing in normal difficulty. I wasn't even trying like anything super fancy because I knew I didn't want it to go meta and like, oh, got a multi-class fighter to get this thing and I didn't want it to do that, so I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna play Bard and whatever.
So let me recommend that you actually do that, because it's not like Divinity Original Sin 2. I played Divinity Original Sin 2 on its hardest difficulty, Tactician, and that was way harder. Like, that was way too difficult. Like, you really have to strategize and really understand the game. It was more like combat puzzles rather than combat in that game. But on here, I found it much more forgiving. Early on, later on, it was still tough, but I don't think it's anywhere near Divinity level.
I mean, maybe. I mean, the way that I don't really want to talk too much about the final boss, but let's just say the way that I did the final boss, I just went in there just like, yep, it's dead, it's over, goodbye. That's pretty much the way it went. So yeah, there's definitely some puzzle stuff that you can do that will make I mean, not puzzle stuff. What I mean is there's definitely certain approaches that you can take to combat that make things a lot more interesting. And again, being a bard, I definitely had a lot of options with a lot of engagements. I'm sure you might have heard some of this, like about oh yeah, I just convinced this boss to kill himself.
I figured there would be stuff like that. I don't think I've seen that.
They literally, yeah, I literally do that. There's like a boss, and I'm not going to tell you when, but there's like a boss. I was talking to him, and I was like, you know what, you should just off yourself. And he's like, okay.
You're playing as a Twitter
That's
user.
Fair.
You're playing as a Twitter user. Just kill yourself.
Oh, just let the toxicity roam free. Let's go.
I like that there's the bard gets a spell that my friend plays as a bard. He gets a spell that lets him insult people, and when he insults people, like the actual character has a dialogue, and he actually insults them. He actually says something to them to damage them. And I'm just sitting here, and every time he does it, I'm like, how many permutations of that? So for all the characters that can do that, and the main character, and all the different voices that you can have, so there's just like thousands of lines of dialogue of insults for all of these. It's just incredible for this one spell that's not even that good.
It's really not. I wish it was better, but I've used it often.
It's just incredible. I was true dedication. It just real.
I even made a short about that, about the first time that I killed an enemy with an insult. I was like, I literally insulted this person to death. This is great. Best game ever.
We talked a little bit about Starfield. Let's touch on that. How did you find Starfield? How did you like it?
So the thing about Starfield for me is that in a lot of ways, it feels like it's the first Bethesda game that I've played that allows me to understand what people like about Bethesda games. Because like I told you, I tried jumping in on Skyrim around the time that came out. And the melee combat is just a huge turnoff for me. Like I think the melee combat is actually bad. Like by default, I'm not talking about, oh, but you can install mods and fix it. So yeah, sure, you can do a lot of things, but the default melee combat, I just think it's actually bad. It's not interesting. There's no depth to it. It definitely feels like the game was made for people to use like bow and arrow or spells or something like that, which is why everybody makes the meme joke about the stealth archer. And when it comes to Fallout, like I said, the setting doesn't appeal to me as much. Now, I did play through Fallout 4 all the way. I think it was fun. I like when the big robot came out because I did the ending, whatever the robot comes around tossing nukes like they're footballs. And I was like, this is great. This is like the best part of the game.
Was that
I'm just
4
like
or
nuking
3?
4.
Huh.
He's just like, he's dunking these footballs into the ground, blowing everybody up, which looks like they're nuclear bombs or something. I'm like, bro, this is amazing. I think the robot's called the Liberator or something like
Liberty
that.
Prime.
Liberty Prime, yeah, that's it. So that part I really liked. But the overall setting, just like the worn down, the post-apocalyptic stuff, it doesn't appeal to me as much. But then when I get to Starfield, now the setting of space is extremely appealing to me as someone who grew up with Star Wars. That's the reason why I know how to speak English as well as I do. It's because I watched Star Wars 200 times, memorized all the lines, and associated them with the subtitles. And so the setting of space is extremely appealing. And so actually experiencing a game with all the Bethesda stuff in a setting that I'm interested in, and not really doing melee combat because, I mean, I'm in space. I'm going to have guns. I'm going to have laser guns. Who cares about, doing melee? Like, I found a katana and I was like, oh, great, another longsword. Fantastic. But so I played through the thing. And one of the things that I love when it comes to space games is I always like choosing like a spaceship that I enjoy. And this game has a spaceship builder. And I think it has to be one of the most robust building tools that I've seen in order to let you actually build out a spaceship however the hell you want. So I would spend hours and hours and hours just messing around with the ship builder. I didn't even have enough credits. That's how addicted I was to it. So I would be just like playing around. And I wish they had made it even more robust. Like, let me save a template of a ship so that I can buy it later. Because like I made this expensive ship, but I can't buy it right now. I need to go farm credits.
Yeah, let me save the template. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. So I basically, that was one of the things that I loved. And then I went into space with my first custom ship, and I was trying to learn how to do proper space combat in the game. And they actually went a step above what I would expect in space combat, because most games that have like space combat as like a side game, it'll usually be something super on rails or super basic, like a arcade flight sim, but in space.
Mm-hmm.
They actually did more than that in this game. And it seems like, I think a part of their inspiration might have come from Elite Dangerous, because they actually do stuff like you can turn off the inertia. So you can let your ship kind of like slide and drift and do all these. I think you need to have points in the piloting skill or something like that, which I wasn't aware, because my character starts with a point in piloting skill. But you can like drift with the ship and effectively be going backwards and shooting at the people that are chasing you.
Mm.
And those types of maneuvers is something that I would do in Elite Dangerous all the time. So I instantly became addicted to the space combat. I just wish they had support for HOTAS, flight and stick and throttle.
Mm.
They don't, unfortunately. You can kind of get it to work, but it's not great. But yeah, so I spent a decent chunk of time playing in space and fiddling around in space and messing with my ship until I made like this perfect behemoth of a ship that was a beast. And that was one of the things that I just really enjoyed. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily spend enough time in space to justify all the time investment that I put into that.
Right.
But I just like the fantasy of like, oh, I want to go down to this planet and there's going to be something to do. And then I jump back on my ship and leave. And it's a fun time, basically. And all of those Bethesda dialogues and all of that stuff, it came to fruition for me in a way that it didn't in the previous games that I've tried from Bethesda. Like, for instance, at one point I was like, oh, there's this Ryujin Corporation here. Because I want to play like a space scoundrel, almost like a Han Solo, I'm going to go work for this corporation and see what happens. Now, that's very different from what Han Solo did. It's more like an Imperial operative almost. But the dialogue options that you get there and the missions that they do for the faction quests and all of that stuff, it was super fun. I had an absolute blast doing that stuff.
I think Neon was my favorite area as well. I did all the Neon related quests. That was probably, it almost made me want to just go play Cyberpunk, because I've never played Cyberpunk 2077.
Me neither.
Just hanging around Neon is like, okay, like if Cyberpunk is just like a much better version of this area, I might want to check it out at some point.
Yeah, but that's the stuff that I liked, right? It's the whole space aspect of it, the freedom to do whatever the hell you want, create your own spaceship, unlock special parts. You can even earn spaceships by doing certain quest lines,
Hmm.
which is another thing that I did. There's like this quest line that you get at some point where you're actually helping design a ship. And basically, I just said, I want you to put all the budget into making this ship. It'll be the most perfect ship ever. And it was a complete atrocity that these people designed. They designed like the ugliest spaceship I've ever seen, but it had some really rare mods in there. And I was like, oh, I'll just take apart all the ugly pieces, put in some beautiful pieces, and
Yeah,
use all these crazy mods that I can't even buy. Like the mods that thing had, I couldn't even buy them. And I
yeah.
was like, oh, okay.
It also had
This
like,
sounds good.
what did it have, like 5,000 storage or something stupid like
Oh yeah, it had all kinds of
that?
storage containers and whatnot. Yeah, for sure.
So like, I didn't like Starfield.
I know. I saw your video. I don't remember a lot of it because my short term memory and my
Right.
long term memory are atrocious. But I did see your whole video. I think Asmongold even reacted to it, right?
Yeah, yeah, he did. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. I like it whenever he does a react to my channel. It's like, yes, I'm making it. um, but like the real like all the other things, like all the little issues, like those don't matter so much. Like people don't like how the characters looks. People don't like how. No, the problem for me, like the really big problem, is that the biggest appeal of the Bethesda RPG formula before this was actually exploring. Like actually just walking towards something and exploring in that direction. Like my favorite one of these types of games is Fallout New Vegas, and I know that Obsidian made New Vegas for people in the comments, but still, Fallout New Vegas, you had the initial goal. You start off in Good Springs. You had the initial goal to get to New Vegas, and you were supposed to like head south, like across the Mojave Desert south, and make a big U and do a big circle around it before you finally get to New Vegas. And as you're doing that, you're encountering like situations that were planned out. It was quite tailored, even though it's got all this freedom. So it's like this nice mix between freedom and tailored content. And as you're encountering this content, you're learning more about the stuff dynamically. You're not going through like a UC museum like you did in Starfield, where you push a button, it tells you lore, and you push a button, and it tells you more lore, which is something that happened in Starfield. Like you're going through the Mojave Desert and you're learning more about the environment. You're learning to care as you're doing interesting stuff and walking around. And so like the actual physical act of walking was a big thing for me that I didn't realize was a big thing for me until I got to Starfield, and it just doesn't exist. So like Starfield, the actual exploration, you go on your menu and you go pick a planet to go to, and you just warp there, and then you get back in, then you are in your ship, and then you go back to the menu, and then you pick a place to land on the planet, and then you land. And then you walk around a bunch of generic procedurally generated stuff before you get to a point of interest, of which there might be five in your general vicinity, and you spend 5 minutes walking to that point of interest, and it's not that impressive. Like the point of interest isn't like a detailed quest line or anything. It's just another tower or cave or interesting location as you're scanning the planet. And so it's got none of that tailored content like I was talking about in New Vegas. I really just like walking towards things and getting immersed in the atmosphere of the location while I'm doing it. And there's not that much atmosphere in barren planets with procedurally generated content. That was my biggest issue.
Yeah, I think that have you played No Man's Sky?
I played the on-release version of No Man's Sky, and I never played it after that.
Yeah. So the thing to me is and I think one of the reasons why a lot of people, although I'm getting a different perspective from you, it seems to me like a lot of these previous Bethesda games, like I said, I didn't play them that much. I finished Fallout 4, but most of that I would be like following a quest line. I never went off the beaten path too much and, oh, let me see if I can go find something crazy or whatever. Usually I always looked at Bethesda games as much more linear experiences, so to
Hmm.
speak.
Hmm.
So that was kind of the mindset that I brought into Starfield. And very early on, I remember landing on a planet which was procedurally generated, and I was thinking to myself, okay, I want to find a place to mine iron. I didn't even understand how the system worked because there's actually a scanner thing that you can do, and then you know exactly where to go in the grid to find iron. So I was just like picking random spots in the planet. Actually, I wasn't even trying to find iron at that time. I just wanted to make an outpost because you get Lynn and Heller as crewmates,
Mhm.
and they apparently have like good skills for outposts. And I was like, oh, I just want to get an outpost so that I can assign them there, so that I can send these crew people into an outpost. So I go into a planet, land in a random location, and very quickly I see that there's like a point of interest, and I scope it out with my rifle, and I'm like, oh, that looks like an enemy camp. So I don't want to be making an outpost here because there's an enemy camp nearby. So I take off and I land in another location. I'm like, oh, there's an enemy camp here as well. So all of this stuff, doesn't matter where I land, they're just going to keep generating this stuff over and over. And at that point, I realized, okay, so I'm not that interested in this, in the procedurally generated stuff. So I just pretty much never engaged with it ever again,
Right.
unless I needed a specific resource. And then I would go into a randomly generated planet to build an outpost. Like I built this iron processing factory essentially because there's like a quest in the game that said, we need 5,000 iron. And I'm like, I'm not going to gather that manually. You're insane. So I made an industrial facility. I never completed the quest either, which is a shame, but I made this industrial facility to collect iron, and it was perfect. It was working flawless. It would have gathered way more than 5,000 iron. But yeah, I made that and I put those two dudes in there. But it's just outpost building doesn't really appeal to me as much as shipbuilding.
Mhm.
So I'm like, no, all of my resources go into shipbuilding. I don't care about this outpost stuff. And I never really touched the procedurally generated content since then because it didn't seem to me like it was something that was super important or interesting. Usually, what I would do is, you know how when you're going through Neon and if you hear somebody speak, they will give you a quest line.
Yes.
So it's like if I feel like doing something random, I'll follow one of those quest lines, and those are usually worthwhile. Like if I just want to explore, like the thing that you're talking about, oh, I want to go out and explore. I feel like that's the way Bethesda expected people to do it. It's like, oh, you hear this rumor in a town, and then you follow through on that rumor.
Yeah.
And there's usually a decent quest chain associated with it. So if I felt like going off the beaten path, that is what I would do. I never went to a planet and landed outside of a point of interest unless I was looking for a resource.
Right. And that's fine because I actually did almost all the quests in Neon. I was very interested, and that's where I had the most fun because I wasn't fast traveling everywhere because a lot of those quests are exclusive to Neon. So you get the quest there, and the quest happens there, and I'm walking around and mapping my environment, like understanding my environment in Neon, and I felt good. Like I felt, oh, I'm part of this community, like I'm part of the Neon community, and I could get immersed and suspend my disbelief easier. It's just the fast traveling that was bothering me. It's the disconnectedness of, like, I don't know what planet I'm going to in those quest logs because you don't even have to pull up the star map. You pull up the quest chain and you press, X.
You press R.
Yeah, you press R on it, and it'll just, all right, fast travel to the location where that thing is, right to it. And so I get there and I'm like, all right, I'm here. I'm walking towards the objective, and then I walk away from the objective. I miss understanding what I'm doing.
There is definitely some things that could have been improved in terms of, particularly when it comes to the traveling. And this is something that I brought up as well, which is the first time you land on a planet, you get a landing animation. You never get that landing animation again on that same planet. And I was like, that's so stupid. Why not? It completely breaks immersion because you go, and I know that for a lot of players, they're going to be like, no, I want to zoom. I want to get there as fast. I don't want to look at no animations. I want to get there super fast. Me, I'm like, no, I want to see an animation of my ship landing because that means, hey, I've been traveling and now I've landed over here. Now, there's a lot of people that want to navigate space in the same way that you would do in something like a No Man's Sky. And while that can be interesting, as someone who's spent at this point, I think over 500 hours, maybe even 600 hours on Elite Dangerous, it is interesting to travel space. To me, the more interesting part is actually manually landing and docking your ship. That is really cool because it's a skill that you need to kind of master to really get it right to be able to land your ship properly. But actually traveling through space. Like, for instance, there was a time where in order to unlock an engineer or something in Elite Dangerous, I needed to travel 5,000 light years away from what is considered the bubble, which is like the human occupied, not just human, but like, yeah, the human occupied space. So like with all of the outposts and all of the planets and all of this stuff that actually have stuff, a lot of the stuff outside the bubble in Elite Dangerous is all procedurally generated. And so I would have to travel 5,000 light years away from the bubble. And all that this entailed is me for 13 hours jumping from system to system. And it's like, listen, that is not that interesting, okay? Trust me, I spent 13 hours doing it. So it's like, I like the freedom of like, oh, I want to go down to the planet and doing all that stuff. I think that's cool, but there's also a point where fast travel is also cool. So I think what Bethesda could have done, I don't know how their engine would be able to support it, was to have like a midway point. It's like, let people do the thing if you want to, like, I forget her name. Damn it. Alana? You know the Australian lady? She traveled for 7 hours to Pluto in Starfield, and then Pluto was just like a 2D thing.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
I forget. I can't believe I'm blanking out on a name. I think it's Alana Pierce, right?
I think
that's it.
I don't know.
But anyway, yeah. So it would be cool if you could actually do that. But it would also be cool if that was an option. So like, just let people fly where they want, do what they want, even if it takes that long. Although there should be systems in place to make you get there faster. Like the way Elite Dangerous deals with it is that you go into Super Cruise mode and you just travel way faster than normal when you're in Super Cruise mode, but you can't like engage in combat or do anything else. You're just flying. And then you exit Super Cruise and then you go into combat or do whatever it is you want.
Have you ever played Outer Wilds?
I've played a little bit of it.
No. You know what I'm going to say. I'm one of those people.
It didn't hook me.
I'm one of those.
I know. You're a big advocate for Outer Wilds. I have a friend of mine that keeps bothering me about it too. The thing about the Outer Wilds is that I don't like the spaceship.
Nobody likes the spaceship. You have to understand. Like,
well, that's the thing. But listen, I just told you in Starfield, I spent like hours upon hours designing my spaceship.
Yeah.
It's like, I need to like the spaceship. If I don't like it, I have a really hard time engaging in a space game if I don't like the way the ship looks.
I have a friend who didn't like. I tried to get into Outer Wilds and he didn't like it. It didn't hook him. He gave it like 2-3 hours and it didn't hook him. And I knew that this was a temporary thing because it happened to me. It happens to a lot of people. They don't initially like it. So like I had to like, all right, I'm coming over and I'm gonna watch you play it. And so we just did that. And then now it's his favorite game of all time. He liked the game so much. Actually, he did my editing for a video that I did in Outer Wilds talking about it, promoting the game. He wanted to do it. Not only did he want to do it, when he was editing my audio, he took liberties and spaced my voice out so that there was more impact on the shots that he was showing on the screen. He's never played a game like that. He hates the games like that. He's never in his whole life touched a game like that. He's a very basic gamer. And now he's just like, he proselytizes like it's nothing. I suggest that you give it another go for your own sake.
Yeah, maybe when there's not like 50 other games coming out at the exact same time, I need to spend some time doing it. I was actually thinking of doing like a Let's Play series on it, and I think that was another mistake because I was recording. You know, I was playing and recording. And that was even more frustrating because you know how the starting moments are for that game. You're just like, bro, this is the most boring. Nobody wants to watch this. Literally nobody wants to watch this, which is also very demoralizing when you're recording something and you begin to realize nobody wants to watch this. What am I doing?
I have found that if I want to enjoy something, I can't make content for it in that style. Like if I really want to try something and people talk it to it and it's something weird and complicated, I really just need to sit down and play it, not stream it, not record for content, even just quietly recording and not saying anything. Like the fact that the recording's happening messes with my brain.
There's pressure.
Yeah,
there's pressure there because you're like, oh, I'm going to have to go through this footage and there's so much trash and I'm going to have to remove all of these dead parts. And it does make it a lot harder to enjoy certain aspects of games when you are recording or live streaming or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's definitely one of those.
Yep.
But okay, so we talked about 50 other games to talk about. So let's. I'm actually curious about this one. I see that you're playing Lies of P. I've been watching you stream it. How do you like that?
Oh my god, it's so okay. So Lies of P is one of the weirdest things for me because I've been seeing like reactions from other people that are trying out the game, and they're all saying like, "Oh, the successor that Bloodborne deserves. This is the best Bloodborne we're gonna get. This game is amazing." And I was like, "Look, I don't think the game is bad. I think the game so far, the one thing about Lies of P is that it hasn't hooked me. Like, you know how you have that moment when you're playing a game, particularly when it comes to these Soulslikes, and you have a moment where the combat just clicks. Like, let's say, for instance, Bloodborne, that can be when you do like your first consistent parrying. You're like, oh my God, I parried that. I can parry that move. And then you parry again and again and again. And it just becomes second nature and the combat clicks and the whole game opens up to you. I'm like 20 hours into Lies of P, and that hasn't happened to me. And on top of it, I felt the need to restart the game because my first character felt too weak.
Ooh.
And here is the weirdest thing. I talked to Cowboy, Fighting Cowboy, who is doing the exact same build that I was doing. He was like, I'm clapping cheeks left and right. And I'm like, how? Am I just bad? Maybe I'm just bad. It could be like, look, I'm no longer a young buck when it comes to gaming. All right. My reflexes are definitely not the same they were 5 years ago for sure. But I don't know. The fact is I then swapped to, because like I was trying to do a build which was the equivalent, I think, maybe of a faith build in a Souls game, right? So I had all of these weapons that did like shock damage and fire damage and whatnot. And I was using those, and basically I would swap element to figure out which one was more powerful. And I found what was the more powerful element for the boss that I was facing, and I could not kill this boss. So I was like,
was it the bishop?
Yeah, it was that bishop that you were watching.
Yeah.
And I said, although I think that when you were watching, I was already on the strength build. So basically I did the equivalent of a strength build, and I destroyed the game. Like, it was disgusting. Though I was still not good at parrying or anything like that, but I'd just be like, oh, let me move away. And then bam, big strength hit and just smash my way through the whole game. And then I got to that boss and I got stuck again for a little bit, but eventually I did beat it. But it just feels weird because it hasn't clicked. And the weird thing too was that then I asked Cowboy, what version of the game are you playing? And he says that his version is like 1.1.2 or 1.2.1, something like that. And I'm playing on PlayStation, and my version is like 1.001.000. And I was like, could it be that like maybe there's something I don't know, because the stuff that I see online of people, they're just like showering the game with praise, and I was like, this is not my experience. I don't know what to say. But yeah, I'm still going through it, and I'm still gonna try and see if I can finish it, but it is a struggle.
So Zyostorm, another YouTuber that I'm friends with,
yes,
he made a video and he had a few complaints about Lies of P, and he got pushback because there is this universal praise that I see from all over the place. But he had a bunch of complaints, and he talked about some clunk to the game and how something should be added that made it needlessly difficult for him. So I'm curious now. I actually haven't played it myself. I'm not sure. I'm not a Souls-like person, despite the fact that I like Souls games.
It's like, so the biggest problems for me, and this was like since the first time that I played the beta, which was essentially a demo, I said, this dodge is terrible. And the developers, I remember the developers specifically making a post saying, oh, we're improving the dodge, it's much better now. And another thing that people said to me was that, oh, Rurikhan, it's because you didn't invest into the dodge thing on the P organ, because that makes the dodge become better. So that was literally the first thing that I did when I was playing the weaker character, was like I put all of the things that I could get into the dodge, and I was like, I'm sorry, this dodge is still ass. Like, I hate this dodge. This dodge is terrible. It feels like my character can barely dodge anything. So I don't know why people are saying this is good. I don't like the dodge. The game is very much it you can clearly see that this is intended to force you to parry. But then the other problem is that the parry window is really tight. Like I'm talking really tight. And then every single boss suffers from Margit derangement syndrome, which means they will lift their weapon and stay there all day looking at you, glowing red. And it's like, are you going to attack now? Is it coming? Can I parry? And then you try to parry and it's like, oh, I missed it. And then you drop your guard to try and parry again. And you just like slam right in that moment that you dropped your guard, it just like slams you down for half your health. There's like, what the hell is going on?
I never heard Margit derangements. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, because a lot of games have been implementing that now, I feel. I mean, even before Elden Ring, it's just Margit derangement syndrome just gives it a nice little name that everybody can understand. But yeah, I feel like a lot of these types of games are now doing that because people have gotten too good at parrying because we can kind of see the hits coming.
I see.
So the way that developers counter that is like, well, we're going to delay. And then the thing is, it'd be one thing if, say, for instance, okay, I've learned how to parry this mob. This makes me better at parrying other mobs. Except, no, that's not how it works at all. If you've learned how to parry one mob, you know how to parry that mob. That's it. That's all you've learned. Now you got to go learn how to parry the next one and the other one after that. It's just, and here's the thing: to the people that still say that dodge in Lies of P is actually fine, I've dodged more attacks by running away than actually using a dodge. I'll just straight up run away.
Did you play Remnant 2 this year?
Dude, Remnant 2 might be one of the best games that I've played this year.
Okay.
Easily.
Okay. Because I was going to ask you, which one do you think is better? Like, if I was...
dude, Remnant 2, it's like if you had to choose Remnant 2, like a million times.
Ooh, let me ask you this then. For me, as someone that doesn't like Soulslikes generally, if I was going to pick one game that, whether you think it's Souls-like or not, what people consider Soulslikes, which one would it be? Like the Neos 2, like go as far back as you want. That's not a FromSoft game. That's a Souls-like. Which one would you say is the best?
Oh God. I don't know. That's rough because, like I told you, my memory is completely atrocious.
Right.
I barely remember a ton of the Souls-likes that I've played before, so that makes it really hard. But I think that Neo would probably be one of the easier recommendations. I think, even though I have my own set of problems with Neo, because the interesting thing about Neo is I feel that when I'm playing Neo, I need to format my brain a certain way. So I'll format my brain. Okay, now I'm good at Neo. I can play Neo, no problem. Let's go. The moment I stop playing Neo, it's super hard for me to get back into that mode. Like if I jump into a Neo DLC or something like that, it is super hard to format my brain again to that mode to be good at Neo again. It would almost be easier to just start from scratch to reformat myself.
So,
but I think that Neo would potentially be one of the better ones.
Above Remnant 2?
See, that's the thing. Not for me.
No.
I like Remnant. I like Remnant 2 more than Neo. And I know that that's going to be like a hot take or something. But I just think that there's a lot of things that Remnant 2 has going for it that are things that I really like. So, for instance, when you're picking up loot in Neo, it's basically Diablo. It's just like, oh, here's this thing chuck full of random stats. And I don't know if it's my age or whatever, but I just don't like that anymore. Like an item chuck full of random stats is not interesting to me. Whereas for contrast, you jump into Remnant 2 and you pick up a gun and you know that's going to be a unique gun. Maybe it's not the gun you want. Maybe it's not even a gun that you like, but it is going to be a gun that is unique and it is like that. And there's a couple of things that you can do to customize it a little bit. But for all intents and purposes, it is kind of like a new play style almost whenever you pick up a new gun.
So it's not just
that
like
to me is much more interesting than a stat stick.
Yeah, it's not just a +6 poison resistance or something.
No. None of that, which is something that I really like. And it's kind of like the same thing for armor, even though armor doesn't really play a massive role in Remnant 2. But yeah, the problem with Remnant 2 and the reason why I don't know, because like I would even say that if it wasn't for the state that it released in, Remnant 2 could be a Game of the Year contender.
Ooh. Did it release poorly?
Oh yeah, dude. It had so many problems. Like I had a friend of mine, because we're content creators, right? We're gonna need to play the game the second it's out. That's just the way that it is.
Right.
So they did the thing that everybody else is doing with early access. So if you paid for the deluxe version or whatever, which is I think $20 more,
I hate that.
you get. I hate that too. But the interesting thing is, every time that I complain about that, people give me pushback.
Why?
And I think that would, yeah, there's a ton of people that's like, shut up, it's not a problem. And the funny thing is, and this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't get. To me, it's great. If every game did that, that's fantastic. I'm a content creator. I'll buy it, and a lot more people show up for the
Yeah.
streams because they don't want to shell out the additional money.
Yeah, that's
So to me, from a business perspective, bro, I hope everybody does it. Naturally, as someone that advocates for consumers in games, I'm like, I hate it. I think it's terrible. And I've spoken out against it time and time again. And every single time I do, I get tons of pushback from people. And I'm like, okay, well, hey, listen, it is what it is. Now you get what you get, because almost everybody's been doing it this year.
when it's so strange to me. Like, if it doesn't bother you, that's one thing. Okay, it doesn't bother you. But why are you actively in favor of it? That's different. It's very different.
Yep.
It's one thing. It's like, okay, it doesn't personally bother me, but like, can't you see why it should? Like, can't you see why?
To give you an idea, Diablo 4 also did this. And at the time, I remember telling people, like, listen, I hope that you guys understand that in the case specifically of Diablo 4, this is straight up pay to win, because a 3-day head start in an MMO. I mean, how are you not going to consider that pay to win? And people are like, well, season 1 only starts like a couple of, like, why are you even arguing this? It's clearly pay to win. It's just like, it's such a cut and dry thing. I don't understand. But it is what it is. But like, the thing about Remnant, right? And the way that it released. So like I was saying, I bought the deluxe version so that I would have early access. And a friend of mine that wanted to play the game with me, he was like, okay, fine, I'll shell out for the deluxe. He bought the deluxe version of the game as well, and we couldn't play together.
Oh.
Because the multiplayer on PlayStation was bugged. And on PC, I think it was pretty botched as well, because I think Cowboy also had problems. And then there were also performance issues, which I believe they fixed over time. And there were a myriad of bugs and glitches and stuff. So the biggest complaint that I have of Remnant 2 is the state that it released in. Like right now, it is much, much better. But the state that it released in is the one thing that I would argue kept it for me considering it like, oh, this is game of the year material right here.
So many games
because
did
I liked
that this
it that
year.
much.
Like, I don't understand why. It's like developers are like selling their goodwill early on for no reason. Like there are a bunch of games that look like they were perfectly fine games that were just shipping in broken states. I think the GotY game, it came out like that.
Oh my god, yeah. I played that one too. I finished that. Yeah.
Yeah, the Callisto Protocol did that. The Redfall did that. Like, all I kept hearing was news. It's the same thing happening over and over. Apparently people don't care. Like, I'm waiting for the day when you make a video and talk about how it was buggy on release, and people defend that. It's like, no, it's fine. There'll be patches for it. Shut up. Stop talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at this point, to be honest. I mean, some of the stuff that like is in although in Starfield it's more like a design decision. I was gonna complain about like the inventory stuff in Starfield, which is terrible, but I guess that's not getting patched, so never mind.
Let me ask you this, because this is something that I complained about before, and it's from the Monster Hunter community. I complained about when they first started doing paid microtransaction armor stuff that they implemented.
Paid microtransaction armor?
Yeah, layered armor that you could buy for Monster Hunter Rise. And I made a video. It's like, it's not like the biggest deal ever, but we used to get stuff like this for free. Like when I go back and I look at Monster Hunter World, that only had 2 pieces of armor in it, and everything else was free layered armor. Tons and tons and tons of free layered armor. And then in Monster Hunter 4 and before that, like all the stuff that we never used to have to pay for layered armor, you just got it. And now we've got, and I know that we get a lot of free layered armor, but I think this is a slippery slope. Like, and I got so much pushback. It's like, no, this is great. It's wonderful that we have this paid layered armor. It's a good thing. This pays for our monsters that we get down the line. What did
I
you think about that
wouldn't
argument?
I wouldn't go necessarily as far as saying it's wonderful that we get paid layered armor, but paid layered armor never bothered me that much because the way that I look at it is there is something of comparable value in the game.
Mm,
So, like, you look at all of as a matter of fact, I would argue, excuse me, I would argue that in the case of Monster Hunter Rise, most of the layered armor in game was actually cooler than a lot of the stuff that they were selling out of the game. So that didn't bother me. The place where I drew my line was what are they called? The lost code weapons, I think.
yeah, yeah,
That's when I was like, okay, see, I have a problem with this because these weapons have a unique sheathing animation and you can't get that anywhere in the game. And
right.
that is where my problem, because like if there were regular weapons, I was like, oh, whatever, it's weapons. It wouldn't have bothered me either. But the fact that they had a unique sheathing animation, I was like, there's definitely a difference in the budget that was
The
allocated
quality,
to these weapons
right.
versus the weapons that are in the game. And that's why I have a problem with it. So it's like when you talk to me about layered armor, not a big deal for me because, like I said, we have comparable, in my opinion, even better layered armor available in the game. Not a huge problem. But with the lost code weapons and later down the line with the plushy weapons, these are extremely unique and there's nothing comparable to them in the game. And I know that some people might bring up, oh, but there's the Teddy Hammer. Yeah, still not comparable to the plushy weapons.
Right. Wait, the
So
plus.
to me, it's all about
Yeah,
like whether or not you have something of comparable value in the game. Then I'm like, okay, fine, monetize a little bit because that's just the way that it is nowadays. It's unfortunate, but it is the way that it is.
yeah, it is the way that it is, but it doesn't have to be like that. There's lots of games that like Baldur's Gate 3, like Elden Ring, that came out that were in a mostly complete state and patches to fix them later, but
Agreed.
that didn't have microtransactions, that insisted on not having microtransactions, that and you know, any DLC that we do get for Elden Ring, it's like what, a year, 2 years? What is that at this point? How long until Shadow of the Ear Tree, assuming it comes out next year? It's 2 years.
I think it'll be like 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years before the DLC comes out. So they're clearly working on it. It's like, man, it's a slippery slope thing that worries me because you know they had that survey during Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak where they were like, what would you be willing to pay for? And one of the things that they
Yep.
asked about was more monsters. So it starts off on layered armor that nobody cares about. It starts off on plushy weapons and lost code weapons. But does anyone think that Capcom is the kind of Star Wars company that isn't going to be tempted to charge you for new monsters?
See, that's why I always find it important to divide publishers into their respective teams. So, like for instance, when you look at something like Elden Ring, if you're saying the name's Capcom when you're talking about Monster Hunter, if you look at something like Elden Ring, you're saying the name Bandai Namco,
Mm,
not from software.
okay,
See, that's the thing.
that's a good
So when
point.
it comes to Capcom, I differentiate between Capcom and the Monster Hunter team. So there's the Capcom and then there's Monster Hunter team. And I believe that the Monster Hunter team hasn't really given me a reason to be super suspicious
Right.
or, I haven't really been given something in a game that I'm like, this is atrocious. I can't believe that you would do this.
That's
The
actually an
weapons is
excellent
something
point.
that I'm not, yeah, the weapons is something that I'm not a fan of, but it's like, okay, whatever. Somebody wants to buy the weapon, whatever, do whatever you want. None of my business. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to support that because of the fact that there's nothing comparable in the game. And that's where I kind of draw my line, right? But the Monster Hunter team, I have faith in them because they haven't given me a reason not to have faith in them. And when it comes, for instance, to like the Monster Hunter now, as far as I'm aware, that's not really something that the Monster Hunter team is involved in. That is mostly a Niantic thing, which is kind of like Pokemon Go with a Monster Hunter skin.
Yeah.
And I never really planned on playing that to begin with because it's a mobile game.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a mobile game person. I was going to ask you if you had tried that, but I guess that answers that.
No, no, not at all. It's just one of those things that the moment I saw it, I remember I made a video about it, and again, got a bunch of pushback from people telling me, "Oh, you should give it a chance." Even earlier this week, I received a comment on that video for whatever reason. I think it's because the game released recently. So I received a comment on that video of somebody telling me, "Oh, you really should give it a shot." And for some reason, the other day I was browsing Twitter, and I got a screenshot from that in my feed, and I glanced at it, and there was an Anjanath and there was an energy bar at the top. Like it said the Anjanath's health pool.
Okay.
And I was like, no, why? And it just reminded me of the comment. It's like, why would you even tell me that I should try this? It's like, it's clearly not for me.
So there was, since we're talking about Monster Hunter anyway, Tokyo Game Show's coming up soon. And a lot of people in my Discord seem to think that it's ripe for Monster Hunter 6 news. What do you think?
I've already spoken about this plenty of times, and I think that it would be a huge mistake for Capcom to announce Monster Hunter 6 at TGS because the Monster Hunter franchise has taken huge leaps in the West by participating in Western events. And I feel like announcing it at an Eastern-focused event is essentially a huge step backwards to the franchise. I mean, like, one of the biggest reasons Monster Hunter finally made it in the West is the simple fact that it was a global release and it was announced on a Western show.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, this is going to be worldwide release instead of what we used to have back in the day, which was 1 year in Japan and then a year later it would release here. It's just like, that was a massive step forward. And again, Monster Hunter Rise announced where? At a Western event because, you know, it's a worldwide audience. So I just think that them going back and just announcing stuff in Japan doesn't make sense. Now, a lot of people are saying that the reason this is going to happen is because of something that Ryozu said, which I already clarified in a podcast with Gaijin, wherein Ryozu just expressed that he was excited to be able to go back to events after the lockdowns and didn't necessarily mean anything in terms of Monster Hunter 6. Now, this doesn't mean that they're not going to announce it there. I mean, anything can happen. They can announce it there. I hope they don't. I would rather see them announce it at like the Game Awards or something like that because I think it makes more sense.
I basically
that's
word
kind of
for
like
word
where I land on
said the same thing as you did. Like just basically word for word. It's like Monster Hunter is a Western thing as well now. TGS is too focused on it's too Eastern focused, it's too Japan focused. There's no way that they would announce it like that when they have better venues, when Monster Hunter World sales were so large in a global market. I think even Gaijin Hunter had a tweet a while ago showing just how many sales in comparison. This is a long time ago though, so I don't exactly remember. So yeah, I don't think so. No Tokyo Game Show.
Not to mention that I also think they would be doing Dragon's Dogma dirty.
Yes.
By, you know, essentially eclipsing Dragon's Dogma a little bit with their big behemoth Monster Hunter franchise, when Dragon's Dogma has already been done dirty for so many years, because there's still people out there that have no idea how amazing Dragon's Dogma is. And I think that, you know, this Tokyo Game Show is let Dragon's Dogma 2 have its moment to shine. That's the way that I look at it.
I'm really happy to hear that you are a Dragon's Dogma fan. Did you?
Oh, dude. I love that game. That game's amazing.
Who did you end up marrying in Dragon's Dogma 1?
Okay, so look. Depends on which playthrough you're talking about. There's been many. And look, in my defense, I had no idea how the system worked. And for whatever reason, first time I finished the game, it was the little witch girl, which I think is a child.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's legal.
Yeah. Well, technically it's a pawn, so it's...
Oh, so technically it's a pawn, so it doesn't matter.
I got the old merchant guy. I don't know.
Of course.
I have no.
Most people did.
I have no idea what I did to do that.
You bought stuff from him.
Yeah, I bought stuff from him.
There you go.
I was trying to get the woman, the night girl.
Mercedes?
Yes, Mercedes. That's who I wanted.
Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes? No, Lord didn't give you a Mercedes Benz.
Nope.
He gave you an old man who says their master works all, can't go wrong. No, dude, Dragon's Dogma was it was really a game, in my opinion, that was ahead of its time. Like, not a lot of people played Dragon's Dogma when it came out. In their defense, there's also the fact that the beginning of the game is it's heavy and it's hard for you to like make sense
Yeah.
of where things are. Which, by the way, you played. I'm assuming the Dark Arisen version, right? You didn't play it when it released.
I played on release and I played Dark Arisen.
Oh, okay. You played on release, so you're an OG then.
Yeah.
All right. So then you know about the struggles, because we didn't have like the travel stones or anything like that when the game released. We were just like
I had to walk.
hoofing it across Grances. See, that's why you like walking in Bethesda games.
Yeah,
so
I learned. I learned.
Didn't you remember how you'd be walking and then you'd get stamina penalty because you hadn't eaten, and you'd be running all the time and then more stamina penalty, and it just compounded. It's just so frustrating. But no, there's a lot in that game that could use a little bit of a polish, make it a little bit more appealing in some aspects, smooth away the rough edges. But the combat that you had in that game, and the multi-classing and the pawn training and all of that stuff,
climbing on things,
fantastic.
it was just everything about that was incredible to me.
Yep. I loved it.
It's not even Dragon's Dogma 2. It's not just that it's a Dragon's Dogma game. It's that we get another iteration of that, because like when it's you got it exactly correct. What was exciting about Dragon's Dogma 2 is the fact, okay, they get to try again. They get to do it now. They got better technology. It's the future. They've learned lessons from the first one. I'm so excited to see what they could do with Dragon's Dogma if they gave it another go, because it has such high potential. High potential.
And the thing about Dragon's Dogma 2 is that it's actually a game that I also really enjoyed the story.
Mm-hmm.
Which, a lot of times we'll play games for gameplay's sake and all that stuff, but I actually really enjoyed the story of Dragon's Dogma. It's a bit of a mindfuck Japanese thing when you get to the end and all the stuff that happens and the Everfall and all of these crazy things. And it's really cool. And then you then go down into the friggin', what's it called? It's not Eventide. I forget. Whatever is the place where Dark Arisen takes place.
It might be Eventide. No, it's not Eventide. That's from Breath of the Wild.
I don't know, but it is something. It is a name kind of like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go in there and you just straight up fight death, and it was always interesting trying to find like combos with the different classes that you would do. And just even in the interaction with pawns, like you could get a pawn with a shield, and then you could, the pawn would be like, now Arisen, and you'd run up to the pawn and he would push you up for aerial combos and whatnot. Dude, there's so much depth to it that, again, it's a shame that not more people enjoyed it.
You mentioned the story. I kind of wanted to mention this a bit before, but I got distracted because we were talking about so many things. The thing with me and Soulslikes, the reason why I ask you is like, which one's your favorite? Which one's your best Souls-like? I might try Remnant because I've heard that it's got a much bigger focus on co-op, and it gives you an opportunity to really enjoy it with your friends. Because like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, they have co-op support, but it's mostly tacked on. Like you don't feel like the bosses are designed for targeting two people many times, especially in the older games. And so it's kind of like you got the base game, it's designed around it, and then you could co-op too. So that's at least that's how I feel about it. But I've heard from people that it's very different in Remnant. It's actually feels like it's more designed for two people.
It's harder.
Yeah.
It's harder when you have more than one player.
Okay.
The easiest form of that game is solo.
Okay.
If you go with two players, it's significant. Like, to give you an idea, I was doing an Apocalypse playthrough, which I still haven't finished, which is like the maximum difficulty. First I started, I started one above normal, and then I wanted to keep going up. I think there's like 2 difficulties above that or something like that. But eventually the last one is Apocalyptic. And I was doing this thing in Apocalyptic with 2 other friends, and it was so incredibly hard because you can pick each other back up, but the bosses also hit way harder, to the point where if you do get hit, you're going to need to be picked back up. And at that point, it's kind of a little bit of a, it's that situation that the dominoes just keep falling because someone will res you, but then they'll die, then you res them, and then you die. It's something like that. But we found ourselves in a boss. And this was like the first time that I was doing this boss, because the way that the game works is there's multiple bosses that you can get. And there's even like secret bosses, because the game uses procedural generation. So say we both start the game right now, you could be ending up on a different planet than me. There's 3 starting planets that you can end up in.
Wow.
So you can end up on a different planet than me. And even if we're on the same planet, there's a chance that you're in a different storyline from me. So you'll still be in a different area of that planet.
Oh, this sounds very interesting.
Each planet has like 2 storylines that you will do. And each of those storylines will have a different end boss for each of the planets, and you go through all 3 planets. Then there's an area in the middle, which is called a labyrinth and whatnot, and then there's like a final planet that everybody goes through. But the idea here is there's a lot of diversity of content so that you can actually replay it, and you're not doing the same things. You're going to be doing different things. There's also a chance that you'll be replaying, and you'll get the exact same planet you started on with the exact same storyline you started on, but you might have like a couple of different events, because there's events in the game as well, which are also dynamically chosen. But, basically there's a lot of variety. So anyways, we're doing this thing in apocalyptic difficulty, and this boss is just so hard. It is completely beating our asses to the point where we're just thinking like, okay, this is straight up unfair. This is terrible. One of my friends, he gave up. He went to sleep. The other friend stuck with me, and we were just like both. This was on stream, by the way. So we were in there for like hours, just wiping to this boss. And eventually we started getting so good at identifying each of the mechanics that it was almost like an MMO raid. It's like, okay, he's in this phase now, so get ready to dodge this thing, get ready to shoot that thing. And we eventually did the perfect execution of the boss, and it was so satisfying. So yes, co-op is harder, but it is also a lot more fun.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's what I needed. I'm gonna get it. Damn it, another game this year. Damn it.
And wait, there's more. So here's the thing. That game has this thing called archetypes. So the way that it works is, say for instance, you start out as a handler. Now the handler is actually one of the classes that I start out with, which is the class that has the little dog that heals you. Mm-hmm. So the cool thing about the handler is that you can send the dog to res somebody else as well. But then you get a second archetype. So you can choose whatever other archetype you want. So you can be a handler and the medic, which will also increase your healing. And then it can also increase the healing of the dog. And there's tons of build potential.
You can make builds.
None of them really locks you in. Because you can like, okay, I don't want to be a handler anymore. Now I'm going to put medic as my main, because whichever one is your main class gives you like additional perks on top of just the class itself. And then you can be like medic alchemist, and now you can heal people and buff people, or you can, there's a ton of combinations that you can do. And that was something that me and my friend were doing, like combining the different classes. So I would have handler, so that if I died, the dog would res me, and that would be one more chance for me to res him if he died. And then we would both also have alchemist, which also gives you a cheat death mechanic. And then he would use in his build, instead of using the cheat death, he used something which would give us more armor, so that we'd survive more. But yeah, just like figuring out these crazy combos was definitely something that we spent a lot of time doing. And it's a ton of fun because, again, you're not locked in stone for anything except like weapon upgrades. So like if you upgrade a weapon, you're expected to kind of like play that weapon for a little bit until you farm more to grind another weapon. But the cool thing about that is, like, how, for instance, in Dark Souls, you go through an area, you loot that whole area, and if you want to get those items again, you have to go into New Game Plus.
Yeah.
So in that game has something called adventure mode. So say you're going through an area and you feel like, oh, I'm kind of locked, right? I'm like, I need to become more powerful, or I want to change my build, but I'm kind of locked in my story in this point. You go to your adventure mode, and you're like, okay, generate me another area of this world, and boom, you jump in there, and now you can just like grind stuff and farm stuff to become more powerful, and then jump back to the other playthrough.
Can I make a melee build? Because I know it's a guns mostly. Like, I know there's a lot of gun emphasis, but I saw a build, and this guy has like a giant sword on his back. So can I make a melee oriented build?
So it's like I wouldn't recommend it
Okay.
because of the way that some bosses work.
I see.
It's going to be very hard for you to defeat some bosses with melee. Now you can play mostly melee, but still have a gun for those bosses where melee doesn't work very well. Like to give you an idea, for instance, there will be bosses that are just outside of your range. Like you physically can't hit them with melee, and you're going to have a really hard time trying to melee those bosses, right? Like there's a boss that is just like a blob of slime in a ceiling. How are you going to melee that? You're not going to fly. So, those become more challenging, even though there are melee weapons that can like be thrown. So
Okay.
technically speaking, kind of, but it's like, it's going to take a lot of effort to kill a boss with just throwing weapons. Okay.
So you
But,
you
you
can do
can
it,
make,
but you shouldn't.
yeah, like I know that that's what Cowboy was trying to do, and he was not having a good time. But then again, he also had like technical issues and whatnot with the people. Because, like I said, the game unfortunately had a lot of technical issues at the start. But yeah, I would definitely recommend. I think it's hands down one of the best games that came out this year. I really, really enjoyed Remnant 2.
I have a bunch of notes, and I keep
Keep
jumping
going.
I keep jumping away from what I want to talk about because it gets distracted into other topics. It's like, damn it, now it feels unnatural. But I wanted to ask you if you had any specific requests for Monster Hunter 6. Like, is there something that you wanted to see from it? What do you want from the next Monster Hunter?
It's weird because in a lot of ways, I don't think that I'm the best person when it comes to being creative in terms of video game features. Because a lot of the times, the things that I think about for video games, I think, wouldn't this be cool? And then sometimes I see a game that implements it and like, no, actually, no, it was not that great. So
Yeah.
I just like to be surprised. One of the things that I think would be interesting for them to explore again is actually underwater,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it just makes sense for them to revisit it at this point, and because I also want to see Lagiacrus come back. So underwater is definitely something that I would like to see. But other than that, the biggest request that I have is I want not Monster Hunter Rise style. I want something more in the style of World. I want something more slowed down.
Preach.
I want something. Yeah, I made a video
Say
about
it,
that,
brother.
and you have no idea how divided the community is on
Yeah.
that topic right
Yeah.
now. It is super divisive because there's a lot of people that just want the big zooms of Sunbreak. And in a way, it almost makes me want to tell them, look, that's what Monster Hunter now is. Like,
You can play Monster Hunter now.
it's super fast. It's like, aren't hunts like less than a minute in Monster Hunter now? Is like, there you go. The game is right there. But like to me, I want slower hunts. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I was even thinking about, but again, it's one of those things that could be a really bad idea. I would love to see multi-staged hunts.
Ooh.
So, like, say for instance, you jump into the game and you're hunting a Rathalos, but rather than so you're hunting this Rathalos and you go in there and you beat the Rathalos to death and he's done. It would be cool, like to give an example, let's say for instance in Monster Hunter World, let's say you start fighting the Rathalos in the Ancient Forest. And you beat him in the Ancient Forest, and therefore you gain some materials and stuff, but he's not dead.
Ooh.
He runs away at the end. And then you have to chase him down and figure out which zone he went to. And then you go to the other zone. So like maybe the second stage of the fight takes place in the Wildspire Wastes.
Yeah.
And then you fight him there. And maybe for that specific quest, it could end there. Okay, so we found him, we killed him, done. But say for harder versions of quests and higher ranks, stuff like that, you could go through 3 zones.
Yeah. Oh,
but
man.
the thing is, with what we've gotten in Rise Sunbreak, trying to convince the community to accept something like that is going to be near impossible.
No.
Like,
people don't know what they want. Like, people don't know what they want. No, people don't know anything. People don't know what they want until it's presented in front of them and they try it and they're like, hey, this is kind of good. Nobody knew that they wanted to play Demon Souls, when Demon Souls came out. Nobody understood that that was...
No, wait. See, that's a lie. I knew I wanted to play Demon Souls when my friend showed it to me. I was like, I want to play this. I bought a PlayStation 3 in part because of that game. So I knew I wanted it.
And Monster Hunter is the biggest evidence that people don't know what they want, because people that don't play Monster Hunter and they look at it and they think it's slow and clunky, like think back to World, and even Rise looks slow if you're not oh, maybe not Rise, but
I mean, Rise can look slow if you're a brand new player.
right,
If you don't know what you're doing,
right.
then it looks slow.
Yeah. So like people don't know that they actually did wanted methodical combat that was presented by things like Monster Hunter and things like Dark Souls. They don't know what they want. They might be happy with what they have, but if you present something in front of them that and they end up liking it, it doesn't matter if conceptually that you wouldn't think that you would want it. No, screw what the people want. That's what developers are for. That's why they're making the decisions and are making the big bucks.
It's like, but that's the way that I look at it, right? I want them to double down on the feeling of what a hunt is.
Yeah.
Because even in the older games, like to me, it could also be because it was the first time that I was playing Monster Hunter in the older games, right? To me, it was always a big thing to go down and hunt the monster because, oh my God, I have to figure out where he's going to go because my paintball's going to run out. There was a mechanic to it. And this is the thing. Whenever I talk about paintballs, people are like, oh, thank God we don't have paintballs anymore. I was like, why?
Paintballs. I like paintballs.
Paintballs was good. There was a thing to it when it's like, oh, I messed up the paintball and now I don't know where the monster is. But I see the balloon guy. I'm going to wave at the balloon guy and he's going to give me one shot at finding out where the monster is. Or you can also use a psycho serum. There's like plenty of ways for you to track down monsters again. But most people it just feels like they want more and more convenience. Like another thing that I want and that I've greatly advocated for is I don't want restocks. I don't think you should get restocks. Sorry.
Yeah.
Too bad. You messed up. You didn't bring your materials.
Didn't bring what you needed.
Exit out. Go get it. Yeah. Go get your stuff. Like I don't want restock. I want a more complex farm too. I want a farm like we had back in Freedom Unite. I don't know if you've played Freedom Unite, but in Freedom Unite, you had this farm.
4 is the furthest I've gone back.
Yeah. So like in Freedom Unite, there's an actual farm with palicos, not palicos, they're felines, with felines in there. And you actually go to like the rows of vegetables and you're like, okay, put some herbs in here. And then the herbs will grow over time. And then you go and you actually pick them up. There's stuff for you to mine in the farm. There are like little activities in these farms. Like even Generations Ultimate doesn't really have that level of interactivity with the farm, even though it has like this whole area dedicated to palicos. There's not really much there. Like I want more of those old things that makes it feel like you're in a lived world. Like a lot of the stuff in
crave
world
inconvenience.
is basically a menu.
I crave inconvenience. I do.
I think that in Monster Hunter, it might actually be a good thing to be a little bit more inconvenienced in certain aspects. Like I'm not saying make the game boring,
right?
But just a little bit more inconvenience, like the whole thing with the hot and cold drinks. Everybody celebrated, and I was like, "What the hell?" So now I just get to walk into a pit of lava, and that's fine.
You know,
at least have the thing where I have to drink this thing to make sure that it adds immersion. Like I don't know.
The biggest thing for me is that I'm a Monster Hunter World starter. I started in World. That's my first Monster Hunter game. And lots of people in my Discord are the same way. Well, I'll start in World. We're World babies. But then I go back and I play Monster Hunter 4, and I'm having so much fun collecting this honey one honey at a time. And I was like, this is so good. It's like, this is peak gameplay. And you never know that's why I keep saying everywhere I go in all my videos, like, you don't know what you want. Stop it until you try it and try it until I tried squeezing out that honey off of that thing one at a time because I didn't have enough mega potions in the early game. And that wasn't continuous throughout the whole game. You could farm it later. But at first you didn't have access to the honey. And I had to learn the maps because I needed to know where that fucking honey was because I was getting my butt kicked by these much harder monsters.
And that's the thing that I always bring up. And whenever I tell this story, most people tell me like, that's stupid. But one of the things that would happen to me in earlier Monster Hunter games, right, is I would do a quest and I was not very good at the game. So I'd get my face smashed and then I'd be like, oh, I went through all of my potions. And you can't just go back to camp and pick up more. Right. That's not how it works. So, although in some missions, they would send you like, if you do an optional objective or something in the quest, they'll send you like some additional resources. You can go there and pick up like 3 more potions, something like that. But, I'd run out of potions and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to run away now. And I'm actually going to go find herbs and blue mushrooms and honey, and I'm going to make some more potions, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to beat on the monster again. Mm-hmm. There's a reason the time limit for these hunts is 50 minutes. Sure, you can do it in 10, but back in the day, that was a lot harder. And so, I would go around and collect resources while I was on the hunt, and then I would, craft materials if needed be. Like, I remember something which is incredibly inconvenient for most people nowadays, But this is actually on video on my channel, I think, at this point, which was something that I did with a friend of mine, which we were both kind of starting in Monster Hunter, even though I had a little bit more experience than him, but I was trying to teach him how to play Monster Hunter. And he wanted to play the bow. Now, bow back in the day was very different than it is now. Like, bow right now is a powerhouse. Back in the day, bow was considered more of a support weapon almost. But so my friend would ask me to bring files for him, and specific files like whichever one is the file that increases the damage. I forget whichever one it is. But so I would have to bring these files with me into the hunt because his inventory would be full. So he would go through all of his files, and then midway through the hunt, we would trade. I would give him more files that he could keep using the bow. And then after he ran out of those, I would give him the empty files so that he could craft more stuff. So that you can, and that was fun. Yeah, and it's like, you can say, oh, that's super inconvenient, but it's an amazing co-op experience.
It's an amazing experience, yeah.
That's the thing.
But look,
and that I feel like is what we're missing.
What's telling is that there are look, this is all the evidence that you need, that we need to go back and slow down. This is the evidence right here. There are people who started in World and played World, and from the transition from World to Rise are being like, no, that's too fast. That's entirely too fast. World babies, fifth geners, that from the transition to World to Rise, they're like, I want my next Monster. Rise was fun. Rise was great. It did everything that it wanted to do. You know, it was the game it wanted to be. But now I want to go back. It's time to return to the good classic Monster Hunter games like Monster Hunter World.
I think that the way to do it is actually what they did, which is, you have your more traditional Monster Hunter in the PlayStation,
mainline
Xbox,
games.
PC.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to call them mainline games because to me they're all mainline games. But what I'm saying is like, and then you have the more portable experience for the Switch. So you'll have like whatever another game later down the line which does the more experimental stuff.
You don't follow like the dynamic, because I don't know, because I'm still newish to the community. I haven't played the old ones, but you don't think that there's a tendency for there to be like a mainline Monster Hunter and then there's a portable game that's faster?
Yeah, there definitely is. That's definitely been the case. But again, like I said, it's just there's kind of like,
you don't like the negative connotation.
I don't like the negative connotation because I feel like both teams are fantastic at what they do. Some of us might like more one side of the experience. Others will like more the other side. But I want to give both teams the respect of being like, no, both games are good.
I'm cool with there being two. Like, I think it's actually optimal. Like, give me a more grounded, slower experience in the mainline games
and
that you do.
Anime weeb one.
Then give me an anime weeb one right after for the fast action punts in 5 minutes. Like, let's do it. Fine, that's great. But don't neglect one or the other. Don't like push them both in the same direction. I think.
I agree. I agree.
My next one, I just don't want the wire bugs. I just want them gone. I don't want the wire fall. I don't want the wire bugs. I want the speed of combat slowed down. I want difficulty distributed across the whole experience and not just like clustered at the very end of the game towards the end game. I want minor walls across the game where I'm like, oh, this is kind of tough. Maybe I need to change something. Like let me try an elemental thing. Let me look at the monster's stats, because now you have the stats available to you. It's not like the old days. Now I can look at what it's weak to. It's like, okay, let me use this element. Let me use this status because I can see that it's weak to that and I know it's effective. And give me some inconvenience like old Basarios, like in previous Basario's case, like he just clank. You're still with green sharpness. You can't just powerhouse through it. You're clanking at it, so you have to either hit in a very specific spot or like just keep going at that one spot. Put some bombs underneath it. Do something that's annoying and inconvenient before I can really get to do the damage on that monster. Or if you really need to, you have to bring a gun lance. If you want to do it faster, bring a gun lance in these lower level areas. Because
I'm always down for more gun lance. Yeah.
No, I'm glad that we're on the same page. I think I've seen a lot of people transition into this space that I've been in for a while, where they're like, this was fun, this was great, I enjoyed Sunbreak, but it's time to return. It's time to go back.
I definitely hope that's the case for Monster Hunter 6. I want something a little bit slower, something a little bit more methodical, and even a little bit less flashy. I want to feel, and to an extent, this part is going to be really rough. A lot of people are not going to like it. To an extent, I feel like not every monster should be scaled for solo.
Ooh, that's my boy. That's what I want to hear. Yes.
Like, because for instance, right, I'm not going to go play GU right now,
Right.
unless I'm going to go play with my friends.
Right.
It's just not happening because, like, I'm not jumping into no friggin' G3 hunt by myself. You're crazy. Especially playing the gun lance. That thing deals negative damage. It heals the monsters when you're in G rank in Generations Ultimate. You're crazy. So it's like, it gave me a reason to just, hey, let's get together and hunt. In Sunbreak, I never had that reason.
Right.
Like, I would get together and hunt. It's like, oh, whatever. Sure, we'll get together. We'll hunt and whatever. But the actual necessity, I think, is cool. But I know that a lot of people are going to disagree because,
look. I've said this early on. I got huge pushback, but people eventually came around to what I was saying, and it's not that I want every single monster scaled to multiplayer.
Exactly.
I just want some, because like some of the best experiences I had in World was those monsters that were scaled to multiple people. Extreme Behemoth,
Extreme Moth was so good.
So much fun. Safi Jiva, the original Kove Taroth, like the stuff that's scaled for multiple people. You can't just tell me, oh, go have fun with other people. No, you're gonna go with other people, because if you don't, you're not gonna succeed. Like, you have to, like, that's so much fun to me. That was it.
I did tons of lobbies for Safi Jiva to get people their kills because, people would be struggling. But the thing is, I don't think it's needed for me to do, because I would farm him by myself,
right?
Like, not solo. I would find lobbies where there were other people doing it,
right? And
I would jump in and help out, and that's it. Like, I was able to farm Safi Jiva solo just fine, not actually solo, but with randoms, by myself, with randoms, without having my community behind me. It was fine. It was not that big of a deal. I did the same thing for Kolv Taroth. I mean, hell, I farmed Kolv Taroth to the point where I couldn't stand the fight anymore, because the first time Kolv Taroth came around, I farmed her nonstop every single free moment that I had for the 2 weeks she was up, because that was the only way of getting shelling level 4.
Bro, yeah, you guys are always having to work hard with the
I know. Dude.
It's always some weird, obscure thing that you need for your build to work.
Yeah. Like when I got the last gun lance from Primordial Malzeno in Sunbreak, and I realized there was a shelling level 8, I was like, wait, what? Capcom learned how to count to 8? Holy crap. I can't believe it. So that was fun.
I switched. I like to stick to one weapon per game that I'm playing. Like, so I'll for this game in Monster Hunter, I'll mostly stick to this weapon, and for this Monster Hunter game, I'll mostly stick to this weapon. I don't like really switching up very often. But I used Longsword for Monster Hunter Rise. So for Rise, I was using Longsword because it seemed like that was what it wanted. It gave me a longsword twice in the game. It forced equipped it to me the first time. So it was like, it seemed to be wanting me to use the longsword. It's like, okay, who am I to argue? I like the longsword. But when I made my complaint video that it was too easy, so many people were like, oh, longsword user thinks it's too easy. And so I'm like, okay. For Sunbreak, I'll switch. I'll learn how to use the bug glaive. Use the insect.
So you switched the difficulty from easy to very easy. Yes. Is what you're saying. It just dealt a little bit less damage, but it was still gig easy.
It was. The longsword was way more complicated. The bug glaive turned out to be so mindless in comparison.
Oh yeah,
and it was specifically the changes that made it. Apparently didn't used to be that easy, but
oh yeah, they buffed the crap out of it for Sunbreak. Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, okay, I can't win with these people.
I would actually use Insect Glaive in quite a few World and Iceborne fights. Mm-hmm. Whenever I was like, I don't want to bother with this monster anymore, I'd bring out the glaive. That's what I would just like, bring out the insect. I'm butcher this creature. Like Arch-Tempered Nergigante, glaive them dead, no problem. A lot of people saying, oh, but the big jump that he does and he one-shots you, and it's like, yep, but all the other times he doesn't do the jump, I'm still in there beating the crap out of him, so I don't care. He can kill me that one time, he can have that one for free. I don't even mind.
I really wish Rise and Sunbreak had decided to make a big monster, like a big Colossus siege monster. That
Yeah.
they never
Yep.
really did it. They kind of experimented it with the final boss of initial Rise. It was kind of siege like, but it wasn't really,
No.
because that like you're flying around. You have wire bugs. You can have all this verticality. You're flying everywhere. You can do whatever you
I
want,
mean,
and you're not going to give me a siege monster to play with with that.
both for me and for Gaijin, the monster that we really wanted to see for Rise and Sunbreak
Hmm.
was Duran Moran or Jen Moran. That's what we wanted. Like straight up. I mean, the worst part is even in at the end of Sunbreak, you have this big boat. Like make a water version of Duran Moran. I want to
Mm,
fight in that big boat that
mm.
we got. That's a not boat, ship. And that big ship that we got. It's an amazing ship. Why can't we do a battle with that? Like that would have been awesome.
Since
Actually chasing down the monster and the monster slams against the ship and you can do all these. Like I love those fights. Those fights are freaking awesome.
since the beginning of the game, before it came out, I always said that I wanted to see what's that praying mantis spider from Generations Ultimate?
Atalka.
Yeah, I wanted that to show up, and I wanted it to wirefall ride
Yes.
a bigger monster, and then you'd have yours, and you'd have this monster clash against each other.
It'd be awesome. Atalka is such a memorable fight. It's
Right.
such a good fight, that thing. Yeah. That would have been a close second. Like if we can't get Duran Moran or Jen Moran, can we get Atalka? But no, you get nothing.
Okay, well, I'm really happy to see this. I wasn't sure where you had landed at, for what you wanted
In
for the
terms of
future.
like speed and whatnot for the
Yeah.
future monster, no, I'm much more of a slow, methodical, give me more hunting aspect instead of boss fight. That to me is a much more interesting experience. Even though I'm down for the fast paced monster hunter,
Right.
but I also want to get the slower, more methodical one too.
So I guess the last game that came out this year that was a big deal was Final Fantasy 16.
Oh yeah.
Did you play that? What'd you think of that?
Oh yeah. I love that. That game is freaking amazing. And I already knew that I was gonna like it because I played 14 and naturally I cursed the community by removing Gaijin from the community so that I could be so that I basically took out the competition, so to speak. No. But no, I played 14, which is obviously by the same team, Creative Business Unit 3. So I had no doubt that I wanted to jump in. The story was really good. I was wondering if it was going to surpass the story of Final Fantasy 14 for me. It didn't,
Mhm.
but it's still a very good story. I greatly enjoyed it. I love the action. And even to an extent, one of the biggest complaints that a lot of people had about the game was the side quests. The side quests didn't really bother me much, although that could be because I'm just used to a lot of MMO type side quests. So doing stuff like that doesn't bother me. And there's a lot of world building in some of those side quests. The biggest issue was the certain moments in the story where they put side quests in didn't make sense.
I
So to
see.
give you an idea, did you play it?
I played some of it. I didn't finish it.
Okay, so there's a point in the game, without getting into spoiler territory, but there is a point where something happens and your friends need help. And because I was doing side quests at every moment they were showing up, I know for a fact that this is when side quests unlocked.
Hmm.
So I do this cutscene where they're like, "Oh my god, our friends, they're under attack like right now. They're coming after them. We need to go help them right this second."
Right.
In that exact moment, they unlock 10 side quests. And there's missable side quests in the game.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I have to do these right now. And that completely broke the flow of that story moment, right? Especially because in a lot of these side quests, your character has a very like laissez, just super chill attitude.
Yeah, I got
He's like,
time.
oh yeah,
I'll totally help
I
you
got
with
time.
this.
I'll help you guys. It's not like my friends are dying on that other city over there.
Yeah.
That was like my biggest complaint. And it was like one moment because the other time that they did that, there was like a natural breaking point. And it's like, oh, we need to go fight the big baddies, but we have like a moment for rest. And then they unlock a bunch of side quests. I'm like, at this point, it's fine, even though there was a ton of them, but it's fine because it doesn't break the pace. But that one moment where it's like, our friends are in danger, gotta go help them. 10 side quests. Like, wait, what? But other than that, yeah, I love my time with it. And even from a gameplay standpoint, because the game is a lot more Devil May Cry than traditional Final Fantasy, which is one of the things that a lot of people have problems with. It didn't really bother me that much personally because I like Devil May Cry, so it's whatever. And the way in which they did the combat system, it was very intuitive. It allowed you to do crazy builds and crazy combos, and basically you would get to a point where it's like, oh, I want to stagger the monster, and then immediately after staggering the monster, I want to do the most optimal combo to beat the ever living crap out of them to see how much percent, how big can I make the number go, and that becomes kind of like its own mini game. So I did a ton of experimentation with that and different builds, different abilities, and whatnot. But yeah, even though once again in traditional Japanese costume, they put a longsword in the game and it was friggin' broken. Oh yeah, straight up. Like one of the icons that you get his sword as like part of an ability or whatever. And that thing, it is beyond busted. Like it's not even, if you use that, you can destroy everything in the game faster than literally anything else. And I was like, oh, that seems pretty much in line with what I come to expect from Japanese games. There's always that one katana that destroys everything.
What did you think of those complaints that some people had about there being only white people in the game? Did you have any thoughts on that?
I don't really care that much. To me, when it comes to that stuff, it's all about what is that the creator wants to do. And they said, we want to represent like some European period, whatever. And this is what we came up with. Not to mention, there's a specific aspect around this game, around the story, which I'm not sure how far you went into it.
I got pretty deep. I got pretty deep into it.
Okay, so you got pretty deep. So you know that the whole thing about the branded and they're essentially slaves.
Yeah.
Like there's also, if you put, people from other races in that context,
right,
it's either going to be, if you put them as the oppressors, then they're going to get backlash because like, oh, they're trying to misrepresent history and and trying to do some kind of, whatever. So there's that. And if you put them in the oppressed, then it's like, oh my God, blatant disrespect. So it's like, it's an impossible position that they were placed in.
Yeah, I actually think that's completely correct. I was thinking about that earlier before the game came out, and the real reason I think that he probably did it isn't necessarily because of geographic, things. I think he just said that. I think the real reason is that he's trying to tell a story about slavery in general. Like he's trying to make his general point about slavery, and if you put minorities that were historically slaved, you change the context of what he's trying to say unintentionally. You can't it changes the tone of what's happening because he's just trying to make a general slavery point, and so the people that are engaging with it have to be the same kinds of people. That's if you actually introduce a bunch of historically enslaved people, then people will start trying to get a different message from it. Yep. And I think he was just like, well, I'm just going to avoid that by making everyone the same race.
Which there's no avoiding it because unfortunately a lot of games coverage nowadays, it revolves a lot around that type of stuff. So
yeah,
it is what it is. There's no avoiding when you take that type of approach. But I don't know what type of backlash would have been worse if he had included minorities or if he hadn't included minorities. If he had put minorities as the oppressors or if he had put minorities as the oppressed. Because the current climate is just very hard to navigate when you're trying to tell a story about slavery.
Well, okay. So I don't know what your opinions are. This is going to be interesting. What is your opinions on Final Fantasy VII Remake? Do you play that? Is that something you're interested in?
Yes, I played, but the thing is, I didn't play the original one, so I don't have nostalgia. I tried playing the original one after playing the remake, and I could not get into it. I couldn't get into it. I got completely lost at some point after I left Midgar. I had no idea where I was supposed to go. I got very frustrated at the parade point where you're supposed to emulate the soldiers. And I was like, there was there was one time when I was doing that, and I kid you not, you could not tell Cloud from any of the other soldiers. It was perfectly in sync, and they caught me, and I was like, "Bro, get the hell out of here! This is some nonsense."
You got deep
So,
into it though. You got all the way to the parade. Like you got really far.
oh yeah. No, I really tried putting in a good effort, but I got to a point where I don't know what I'm doing. I have like this vehicle. I'm running around through the world, and if I happen to aggro the wrong thing, I get insta-gibbed. I don't know. And so eventually I just stopped playing because it just wasn't fun. Now, in terms of the remake itself, I greatly enjoyed what I've played of the remake. I played Integrate as well with the Yuffie DLC, all of that stuff. I thought it was really fun. As a matter of fact, because of playing the remake, I eventually played the remaster that came out of Crisis Core.
Mm-hmm.
And Crisis Core is fucking amazing.
Is Crisis Core the one with Vincent? Or is that the one?
Zach.
That's the one with Zach. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, bro, Crisis Core is an amazing game. I had no idea the game was that good. I loved it. I played the crap out of Crisis Core. I was even thinking about doing a crazy build to go beat whatever is the boss of that game. Is it Ultima? I don't know. But there's like a giga boss in that game that has like a zillion hit points. And I was like, I don't have the patience for that. Actually, never mind. But I did put in an honest effort. I finished the game, loved what I played of the game. But basically, Final Fantasy VII Remake was kind of like my drug of entry into the Final Fantasy VII world. And I enjoyed it a lot for that. And I understand that, they've taken some liberties with that. And apparently Zach should have died and he didn't die. And I'm like, good, because Zach is better than Cloud. So, it is what it is. And I don't care. I'll say it again because I know there's people get really upset when I say that. It's the truth. Sorry, bro. It is what it is. But yeah, no, I think that remake is a lot of fun. And I want to play the next one that's coming out. It's coming out next year, I think, right? Or is it this year?
I think it's next year, early next year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I definitely want to play that too.
So like I have weird feelings because I get both sides of the issue with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because in Final Fantasy VII Remake, like if you remember towards the ending, they had those nobody looking characters. What are those things called? Whispers. They had the Whispers, and they're trying to keep the canon. They're basically Miguel from the Spider-Verse thing, and they're trying to keep everything happening the way it's supposed to happen. And they're representations of players. They're representations of people that want Final Fantasy to just be a remake. And so they're trying to keep Barrett from dying. It's like, oh, this didn't happen. We have to make sure got to keep this character away from here. This guy's not supposed to hear this yet. You keep everything stable. And so at the Aerith kind of like seems to remember what happened, and Sephiroth definitely seems to know what happened in the original game, and they have their memories from back there. It's not really a remake. And so then none of that happened. None of that happened in the game. And so then and so then you beat the Whispers. You beat the Whisper things. You fight Sephiroth, and then like the path is opened to you, and it's got this like thing where it's like, okay, now things are going to be really different. Like this isn't what you thought it was. It's not just a remake, kind of thing. And that seems to be the point of Final Fantasy VII Remake 1. And a lot of people are like, what the fuck is this? I just wanted a remake. Like, what is all this? What are you doing? What are you adding here? And the way that I have grown to feel about it, it's like, I see why you're angry. I get it, but I want to know what they're doing. What compelled them? Like, what story are they trying to tell here? Like, what compelled them to do this? Where Aerith seems to remember the past and Sephiroth seems to remember the past. This isn't a remake at all. This is just a sequel or something. Something's happening. And I played Final Fantasy VII. I'm very curious as to see where they think they're going with this story, and what did they think was worth getting all these people angry over.
It's an interesting thing because if you think about it, like, say for instance, Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
You have Dark Souls, and there's a chance of you getting like a remake, which is just a visual upgrade, game looks better, whatever. Kind of like the way that they did Demon Souls into the new one. Mm-hmm. Except I know you have some problems with some of the choices that they made there. So let's assume that Miyazaki's the one behind doing the remake of Dark Souls, right? So he's going to do it proper. He's going to do it super, fidelity. And it can go one of two ways. Miyazaki goes and pulls off something kind of like what they're doing with Final Fantasy VII Remake, where the story gets told, but you get different perspectives and things happen in different ways. but again, in a Miyazaki type story, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And things go different. Or you have the other path, which is like, no, it's just a beautification. It looks better, animates better, blah, 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 runs 60 FPS, 4K, 8K, variable frame rate, friggin' HDR, all the bells and whistles, ray tracing,
Yeah.
right? So which one do you want? Do you want the one that's all just like beautified exactly the same as the original? Or do you want the one that's different that Miyazaki is doing?
Now, I want the new one. I want the one that's different, because it's like,
Of course, because you've played the first one.
I played the first one, and it's not
Exactly.
It's not just that. It's also like, in general, I don't like remakes. Just in general, because even minor things. A lot of what I appreciate is preservation. Like, I want people to be able to see these things as art, especially something Miyazaki makes. I want them to be able to see it as art, and it's hard to tell exactly what people will find compelling. A lot of people don't agree with me about my Demon Souls take that the remake is. I don't like the remake.
I saw your video, and I'll be honest, I never really noticed those differences, particularly when it comes to the Fool's Idol, which I think was a really good argument that you made there. And it's like, when I was playing through Demon Souls, I never paid too much attention to that, because I usually focus much more on gameplay than those little details.
Right.
But when you showed that detail, I was like, holy shit. Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
So if you don't care, that's one thing. But like, there's going to be a lot of people that do care, even minor things like color additions. I don't even like the 3DS remake for Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is one of my favorite games, because the colors are different. Like, I don't like the way that the green on Link's tunic is too bright, and so I'm a nitpicker. The only remake I've ever really agreed with is Metroid Prime Remastered. It's just a wonderful, perfect remake. But so what I'm saying is, like, instead of making a remake or a remaster like this and kind of cannibalizing the original, because when you make a remaster like this, it makes the original less accessible, because less people will go in thinking, oh, well, the remake's just objectively better. Like, the remake is doing everything that the original game did, but better. And I don't agree with that often. But if you're doing this and it's not really a remake, it's just a whole new game with different things happening, and it's a sequel that you don't know where it's going. That's very interesting, especially because I think it is all these same creators that made Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, okay, you got something to say. You've got a new story to tell. I'm interested. Show me what you got. Show me what you're trying to show.
Yeah. I do think that you make a good point when you're saying, like, the preservation stuff, but as far as I'm aware, you can play the old Final Fantasy VII in current platforms.
Yeah. Anywhere.
See, that's the thing. To me, whenever you can't play the game, that is when I really want, like, an accurate remake. Like, for instance, a game that you have to play at some point. Let me tell you, out of all the games that you've never played, this is the one that you need to play the most. And there's not even a shadow of a doubt in my mind.
Let me write it down. What is it?
Soul Sacrifice Delta.
I think I've heard of that.
Oh, yeah. So, Soul Sacrifice Delta is a game that the only place you can play it on is on a PlayStation Vita.
I have seen this logo. I know I've seen this logo somewhere.
So it's like, that game I would love, but to be honest, I will take anything they want to do with Souls. Like, you want to make a new game? Make a new game. I don't care. You want to remaster the old one? Remaster it. I'll play it again. 100%. I don't care. It's just, I just want more people to know about Soul Sacrifice. And it's like, there's a bunch of games.
Did you get Gaijin into this?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Listen, I got Gaijin into it. He bought a physical version that you can't even find except in friggin' China. He bought the special console that has, like, the art and stuff. He bought figures of the characters in the game. And I'm just sitting over here, bro, I can't even buy a physical version of this game. It doesn't even exist.
Yeah, I do. Okay. I remember, like, he made, like, a playthrough of this or something on his channel.
Oh, yes.
He got so into it, he's like, I'm going to make a walkthrough for all the people that never are going to be able to enjoy it.
I never even finished the game because, like, I get tired of playing it on Vita, and it's not easy to stream, because if I want to try and stream Vita, I can either hook up a USB cable and look at the Vita while I have a microphone in front of me, which is the worst experience, Or and I've done it, by the way, and I've done it in an even worse way, because when I started playing this game, I didn't even have like a modded Vita, which I bought and ordered from Japan.
Mhm.
I didn't even had a modded Vita. So what I did was I would have a camera and I would
No.
point the camera at the console. I bought like a stand that you would like put the console in, and it had like a suction cup at the bottom so I could like glue it to a table so that the console wouldn't move, right? So I'm playing it like that and watching the game through the viewfinder of the camera. Okay. So it's like, this is how I initially started like recording stuff for Vita games and whatnot. And eventually I was able to get the modded one. So then I could play it with the modded, but it's still annoying as hell. And then eventually there's an even better way of doing it now, which is the Vita TV, which I'm not sure you even know what that is. It's like a
No.
little box it's a tiny little box that you can play Vita games on. Just hook it up to a television. But the problem is that thing has HDCP protection. So in order
Yeah.
for me to stream
Yeah.
that thing, I need to buy a cheap HDMI splitter.
Yeah.
And it has to be a cheap one. Can't even be a good one, so that it strips the HDCP away so that I can then plug it into a capture card. It's like, bro, I'm done with that life. Listen, I've done that for way too long.
I'm an old man. I can't do that anymore.
I want to play this game, but I'm not about to like squeeze myself. How do you say it? Friggin', I don't know. Fold myself into a pretzel to play the damn thing. You know, that's the thing.
What about emulator? Did you give that a shot?
No, I don't like emulation in general. I'm not a huge fan.
Not a huge fan?
It's like, no, it's like, how should I put it? It always feels like it doesn't feel the same as when you're playing on the original hardware. I'm a little bit weird that way.
Like
I know.
I don't disagree, but for preservation, like I think preservation's been solved. Like it's been like people talk about preservation. We have to do all these things for preservation. It's like, no, I think it's solved. As long as like the laws don't change or something happens, we should defend what we have. But like,
no, I agree. It's like when I say I'm not a fan of emulation, I'm not saying I'm against it. Quite the opposite. Like I would support emulation. I'm just saying, for me, when I'm playing an emulated game, it doesn't feel as good as when I'm playing it on I want the console experience.
Yeah, you want the hardware experience.
I'm really weird that way. I don't know why that is, because like there's like a mental thing that happens when I'm playing an emulated game where I just don't feel invested in it, and I can't explain why that is, but that's always been the case. So like, for instance, I never played Ocarina of Time because I didn't have a Nintendo 64, and I do remember back then I just grabbed the ROM off the internet or whatever and I just started playing it, but I instantly lost investment. Because like, well, I didn't buy it. I'm not playing it on the original hardware, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like a bunch of mental blocks that instantly form. And I'm just like,
I think I have the same thing. Like, I think I have that for like just PC in general. There's something weird about it. Like, I've been a console gamer most of my life, and I've associated the PC with work. You know, it's my workstation. Yep. I go there to work. I got my chair. I've got my desk. And so I'm sitting here trying to play the game. And so, like, to enjoy a PC game, I have to trick myself. I have this thing connected to my dumb TV, and so I'll go to my dumb TV over by my bed or over by my couch, and I'll have a controller, and the controller's got Bluetooth, and I've got like this wire that's connected to this thing that makes the Bluetooth stronger, and the wire's closer to where I'm at, and I can't see it. So like, I've got all these tricks to get my brain to, I'm not playing a PC game. What are you talking about? No, I'm playing on a console with my controller far away from where my desktop is. I'm over here.
That's the thing that I get. I get a lot of pushback whenever I say that usually I prefer playing games on console. Like, people will be like, PC is clearly the superior experience, you're dumb. And it's like, I never said the PC isn't this superior experience. The thing is, look, I come from an IT background. You have any idea how many PC problems I've had to debug throughout my life? It's like, every time I look at a computer, I think of work. There's nothing else I can think about but work. So it's really hard. Like, I played Starfield on PC with mouse and keyboard.
Ooh. I wouldn't want to do that. And there's also the emulator is another thing. The emulator often, in the older ones, it'll often just run fine if you've got a good enough computer. But some of the PS3 and forward emulation, you got to fiddle with it. you get a fiddle with it. You have to go on forums and they'll give you advice as to what put your settings on and how to do it and which version of the ROM you want and how to update your settings to something like that. And I'm like, that's just so much work. It's like, let me pop in a disc on my PlayStation 3 or something. I'd almost rather do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like the same way that I feel, which again, like I said, I want to make it perfectly clear. I completely agree that most of the time PC has the better experience. If a game is multi-platform and properly optimized, you get, your friggin' 4K 60 FPS. It's freaking fantastic. I mean, I have a pretty decent rig. I have a 6900 XT, a Ryzen 9. It's my PC is pretty good. I can play games on it. It's fine. But given the choice, and I also have this thing, which is right now I'm at a warehouse. And this is not my home where I record and where I do my stuff. This is not my home. So
I see.
Then I go home, and on my home, I have like a laptop. I'm not going to be playing no games on my laptop. So usually I can carry a PlayStation 5 with me. That's easy. I'll put that on a backpack. Boom, done. But I'm not going to put like a PC tower on a backpack and hook up all those cables and keyboard. It's like, nah, bro, that ain't happening.
Is that to keep your family away from your work?
No, it's because I don't have enough room at home.
Right.
There's just not enough room.
I often, whenever I'm doing these podcasts or I'm doing a recording, like I also have family around, and they'll make noise, and I'm like, hang on, I gotta go deal with this, and I just tyrannize the house. It's like, everybody quiet, better not hear any breathing going on while I'm having my podcast.
Yeah. I got it. But no, that's not the thing. For me, it's mostly just there's just not enough room to have my setup
right
at home at this point. So yeah. But yeah, that's the thing about the whole emulation thing. I hope that they keep doing strides with emulation, because game preservation is definitely a serious problem that we have, and emulation does seem to be the solution.
It seems like the solution to me, yeah.
Even because there's definitely not enough people doing right by a lot of really good games. Like I just said, Soul Sacrifice Stealth, it's like it's dead.
It's like yeah.
A lot of people don't even know this game exists. It's so goddamn frustrating.
Even when they get a second chance at life and they get a remaster or a remake or something, it's often something that I'm like, man, no. It's like the Demon Souls remake. It's like, no, wrong. And it like, it even takes the name, like that galls me. Like it even takes the name. It's Demon Souls.
You're really mad.
No,
you are really mad.
It says Demon Souls. It's not Demon Souls Remake. It's not Demon Souls Remaster. It's not Demon Souls 2018 or something. No, it's just Demon Souls. Oh, well, if it's just Demon Souls, I'll go and play that for the first time. That'll be my first experience with it. It's awful. Jesus
Christ. Not even Miyazaki cares as much about it.
No, he doesn't. Miyazaki has said something along the lines like, I can't go and do a Demon Souls remaster or something because I already did that. I'm not the same artist I was back then. If I messed with it, there are things with it that I would disagree with, and I would change it. And there are a lot of people that like that. I shouldn't do that. So I just need to look to my next work. Really respect that. I really respect that.
That's one of my favorite things about From Software. They're always like, "No, next thing.
Yeah.
Move on, next thing." A lot of people are like, "Oh, I want Dark Souls 4. I want Bloodborne 2." And I'm like, I want whatever Miyazaki wants to do next. That's what I want.
You think they'll do an Elden Ring 2?
Doubt it.
Yeah.
I hope they don't.
I don't think so. I'd be happy with like any amount of DLC. They're going to make Shadow of the Earth Tree, and maybe that's it. Maybe they'll make more.
So long as it's not like the Ringed City.
You and your hatred of the greatest DLC ever.
Good Lord.
How could you not love Ringed City?
I don't know. It might have something to do with the Gundam angels that don't let me explore the game properly, or it might be the immediately following archers on the bridge that also don't let me explore things properly.
You have to love those archers.
Or it could also be that garbage dragon that just keeps jumping 10 miles away from me, and the whole fight is me running after the damn thing. I might as well go for a full stamina build so that I can actually keep up with running after it. Might be those three things.
Madeira is a perfectly balanced boss.
It's perfectly what?
It's perfectly balanced. It's exactly how it should be.
I'm not saying it's not balanced. I'm saying it's boring.
It's boring.
These are two very different concepts.
A lot of people hate Midir. A lot of people have problems with him. That's
I
not that
don't like
unusual.
I don't like Midir, and I didn't like the gun. It's the thing is, whenever I criticize that aspect of the game, I realize it's something very personal to me because of the way that I play these games, and it is also something that happened to me on the very first Neo DLC, which caused me to get so enraged that I did something that I never did before, which I actually privated the live stream.
Ooh.
That might have been the first time because I was so pissed off, dude. I was so pissed off. And the thing is, whenever I'm playing a Souls game, what I like to do is I like to explore every nook and cranny
Yeah.
at my own pace.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go as slow or as fast as I want to go. And the last thing I want is the game pushing me. Now, there are situations where I feel that, they want to create a situation where we want to push you a little bit. I'm fine with that. Have a section where you push me around a little bit. But good God, the Ringed City is the whole goddamn DLC is pushing you around. First, we push you around with the Gundam Angels. Then we push you around with the Archers on the Bridge. It's like, bro, no, I don't want to get pushed around. I want to explore this at my own pace.
Do you have?
And I probably made the mistake that I played that thing at New Game Plus.
I see.
Probably shouldn't have done that, which was probably harder. But yeah.
I mean, it was a very difficult DLC. It was not just the. Do you have any fun doing PvP? Like, I doubt you're an invader or a dueler, but do you like getting invaded and having to deal with it? Yeah.
Okay. I love getting invaded.
So
I love that.
My favorite
as a matter of fact, that was a big complaint that I had for Elden Ring. And I made a whole video about it.
Oh, great! Yeah,
and people were telling me it's not a problem. It's all in your head. You're stupid. And it's like, what do you mean? You literally can't get organically invaded. You can't.
It's funny.
You can't set the game up in a way to be organically invaded, which is what I want. It's more like, oh, I want to get invaded right now, and you press the button, and somebody comes in and invades you.
It's not an invasion then. If you want to, if you
exactly. If I can choose when I'm getting invaded, it's not invaded. I want to be like, I don't know, an hour deep, and this is contrary to what a lot of people think about me because they're like, you didn't like you didn't like Ringed City because it's too hard. It's like, no, I didn't like Ringed City because it forced me to do things that I didn't like, which is fine if they want to do that, but I'm not going to like it. But when it comes to the challenge, I love being like 1 hour deep into a dungeon and dying and losing all that progress to a player. And here's the thing. Unless the other player drinks Estus, I won't even drink Estus first. I'll only drink Estus in response to the other player healing himself. Because if somebody tries to duel me fair and square, I will die. Unless I can beat them, because sometimes I'll win too. Come on, I'm not going to die every time. But I'm not the best PvPer, and I accept that because I don't take PvP too seriously in Souls games. And the reasoning behind
you're glad that it's there.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's there, and I like getting organically invaded. Like I said, a lot of the times I would go through a playthrough in Dark Souls, and I would just be in human form just to be invaded. As a matter of fact, I think it's an inconvenient that I have to waste a resource to do that. Right. I wish it was a toggleable mode. Just let me turn on invasions. Anybody, and just have that cooldown period so that I'm not getting invaded 24/7, right? Because Dark Souls 1 did that perfectly, which is like you get invaded, and now there's a cooldown period, which you can reset if you want. But it's like there's a cooldown period where I can progress a little bit, and then I'll get invaded again.
That's very important. It's very important. And you don't have that if you use the dried finger that you have in Elden Ring.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's no cooldown.
There's no cooldown. It's like the moment you're like, oh, I feel like getting invaded. It's a goddamn fight club. Everybody shows up. Yeah, and it's a mess. It's like, no, I just want organically every now and then somebody shows up and fucks me up, or I fuck them up. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But that's what I want. I want that, and I think that is probably what most invaders want as well. They don't want to jump into a fight club every single time. It doesn't make any sense.
Like we don't mind if it's a fight club. Like if they're going to the level and they've got phantoms, they got a co-op and they gank you. That's understandable.
Yeah,
I completely understand. But do I have to hit every time? Like every single time, like every match.
It shouldn't be like that. And the thing is, I feel like there's probably more players that I'm not saying like more in terms of more than regular players. I'm sure that a majority of players don't want to mess around with invasions. That's fine. But I'm sure I'm not the only player that would like to have an organic invasion experience, even though I'm not an active invader.
Every person I've talked to says the same thing you do.
Active PvPer. I want that chance to be there. And that's something that I've always liked ever since the days that I used to play World of Warcraft, for instance, where I would play in PvP servers, not because I want to engage in PvP 24/7, but because I want the chance to be there, the adrenaline rush of potentially at some point somebody from the Horde can show up and fuck me up. Hey, it is what it is. If that happens, it happens.
I actually do
But
think
in Elden Ring, it doesn't happen.
I think you're a majority percentage, because everyone I've talked to about this that isn't a PvP person, like everyone that's not a PvP person that I talk to, would be like, I'm okay with getting invaded, or organically. Sometimes of like, maybe at least in certain places, like they had in Dark Souls 3, certain areas where you were way more likely you'd have Covenant invasions in that area. And here's the thing. Whenever I talk about this, people are like, oh, you just want to invade people. You want to bully people. You want to get the high-level equipment and go to the low-level areas and just mess people up. It's like, you're not listening. I want to get invaded. Why can't I get invaded? It's not about you anymore. At this point, it's not even about you. I want to be organically invaded. It's not about me wanting to invade you. Like, even if there was a setting that would separate everyone that wants to be organically invaded and be able to invade solo hosts, and everybody that doesn't and has the regular, even if it did that, I'd be okay with it. What do you think is getting Game of the Year this year? It's going to be a rough year.
You might as well ask me for the lottery numbers. I have no idea. I haven't even figured out what I would want for my personal Game of the Year. It's
there's still Tears of the Kingdom. Really, we didn't discuss that. Like, what do you think that has a shot?
Definitely, Tears of the Kingdom definitely has a shot at Game of the Year. I think Tears of the Kingdom is a huge evolution from Breath of the Wild, with all of the new systems that they put in place, and the Sky Islands and the underground zone. I spent tremendous amounts of time. I explored the entirety of the underground zone. It was crazy. But whether or not it's going to win, I don't know. I think that definitely you're going to see nominations for Baldur's Gate 3. Whether or not that is going to win is another thing, because I don't know. It's weird, but I don't like where the story goes in Baldur's Gate 3.
Oof. This is the complaint I don't get yet, because I'm not there yet.
Yeah. You're not there yet. And but the thing when I say that is that a lot of people instantly associate that I'm saying the story is bad, which is not the same thing. I don't like where the story goes, but I do not say that it is a bad story. I think the story is probably great. I just don't like it. It's two very, very separate things. But I think that most people seem to be resonating with stories. So I think that Baldur's Gate 3 probably has the best chance to win.
Since you're getting yourself in trouble in the comment section, let me do the same thing. I didn't like the story for Tears of the Kingdom, like especially the ending. I like
Tears of the Kingdom better than Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. But I really did not. It did not resonate with me. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about it. So spoiler warning for Tears of the Kingdom's ending. I don't like that Zelda turns back from being a dragon. Like, you give me all these memory cutscenes. You give me all of this emotional baggage. You go out of your way to emphasize that this is a permanent change. She's sacrificing herself to turn into a dragon so she can power up the Master Sword. I thought that was great. I thought that was a really nice emotional peak. And then at the end, it's like, okay, yeah, never mind. Sony and Raru.
I mean, I never once expected her to be a dragon forever. I never expected that to be the case. I was like, nah, that's never going to happen. There's no way.
This is Zelda.
No,
they're not going to do that.
Yeah, it needs to have a happy ending. I think all Zeldas kind of like have happy endings.
Yes, but they don't all have no loss at the end. Like, okay, the issue. So all of the other ones, I don't know. I don't think you have played the. Did you play?
I've only played Twilight Princess.
Okay.
I played Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild, and this one.
So let me use Twilight Princess as an example. That's a great example. Twilight Princess also did the same thing. So like, you think Zelda dies, there's that whole scene where Midna's dying and Zelda sacrifices herself to bring Midna back, and she comes back at the end. She just kind of pops up, and you're kind of a little surprised because you thought she was dead. So that's a good example. But at least Midna leaves at the end of the game, and she breaks the mirror behind her, and there's nothing. And so there's like this sense of loss. You have this whole character that you've spent the whole game with, and now it's gone forever. You can't see it anymore. All of the Zelda games have something like that. In Skyward Sword, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, it all has this weird, somber sense of loss. Something was sacrificed to gain this victory, except for Tears of the Kingdom. I hate it. I hate it. It's the only one that didn't do that.
It would have been better if she hadn't turned back, for sure.
Yeah,
I think it would have been a better story. But I still liked it. I don't think it was. I think it was definitely more meaningful than Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild just felt like, oh, everything's fine.
Everything's fine now.
Yeah, it's all good. It's like it's a very basic. Oh, we save her and then we beat the bad guy and it's done. And this one felt like there was more, because even though, right, she comes back, she was stuck like that for how many years as a dragon?
Like thousands and thousands, like in tens of thousands.
She was stuck as a dragon for tens of thousands of years. So, there is that.
There's that. At least
There's
a little bit of trauma.
Some suffering there.
Like she doesn't remember though. Like she doesn't remember any of that. It's like, I don't remember.
She should. That would have helped. At least a little, yeah.
I would have liked
a little bit more suffering.
Even if everything else was the same, I would have liked her like to look a little more distant. Her eyes are a little cloudier from the experience. She needs some time to recover.
1,000-yard stare.
Yeah. 1 yard for every year. I'm thinking Baldur's Gate 3 is
Baldur's Gate 3 as well.
Yeah, I'm really thinking, and I'll tell you why. Here's an experience that convinced me this is what Game of the Year is likely. I intended to romance Lae'zel. That was my intention. I was going to do that. And it's because everyone's romancing Shadowheart. Shadowheart's hot. Everybody likes Shadowheart. I'm not going to be the basic.
I have no idea what you're talking about for neither of those.
What? Who did you romance?
The only possible
it's Karlach. It's Karlach, isn't it?
It's Karlach. Of course. You kidding me?
I actually really like Karlach. Despite
Karlach's fucking amazing.
She's really funny. I almost wanted to romance her because she's got this whole. I saw a cutscene on the internet where you confess to her, and she's like, "I love you too." Well, that feels great to say. I was like, okay, that was amazing. Like that really hit me. That was adorable.
It's very good, and she even has like some more stuff that happens, which is it's just really cool.
So
although the second sex cutscene is probably not going to be for everyone.
I see. So I was going to romance Lae'zel, back to what I was saying, and it was fine. I liked Lae'zel. I like her attitude. I like her no nonsense thing. She's very to the point and blunt. And you know what? This is very appealing. I like this a lot. And Shadowheart's like, she's mysterious. She's got that thing. But even though I wasn't trying to romance Shadowheart, her affection points just went really, really high. She just kept approving everything I do. So in the scene where you beat the goblins back and she offers a drink, I'm like, all right, we'll have a friendly drink. We'll have a friendly drink together away from everybody else, like buddies. And then you guys are like laying there and she's like looking, it's a very weird scene. It made me feel weird feelings because she's like looking at you quietly over this drink and like she's inviting you to kiss her. At least that's what the narrator said from my insight roll. And I was like, oh man, this is really tempting because she's got this whole attitude where oh, I don't trust anybody, but I've grown to like you. And it's like, this resonates in the male mind. This really resonates with people. It's an extremely appealing archetype for a character. And so I was like, damn it. And I pushed it and I ended up kissing Shadowheart. And I was like, oh, I'm not the guy I thought I was. I thought I was a loyal... I thought I was a loyal Lae'zel dude. It was almost against my will.
Were you already romancing Lae'zel at the time?
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes, I was already.
You dirty cheater!
I was a cheater. So I didn't think I was a cheater. I didn't go into the situation thinking. It was the fact that it wasn't planned that caught me by surprise. That they wrote a character so good that it made me change my mind in the spur of a moment. It's like, when do I ever do that? I never do that. That's incredible writing. So that's what I'm thinking.
See, they tried pulling that stuff on me, but with Gale. Gale just wanted the bone all the time. All the friggin' time. Like there was one time where we were covered in monster entrails, and that he just comes up to me and he's like, "I'm so horny right now." I was like, "What the fuck?" Gale, stop.
Down, get a spray bottle.
Yeah, dude, like Gale just wanted the bone at every and he knew that I was with Karlak already. He didn't care. And here's the interesting thing. For some reason, Karlak said she didn't care either.
So I guess some people you can have two partners with.
Oh yeah.
I doubt that Shadowheart and Lae'zel will be into that, because not because for any reason, but just because I'm sure the developers won't let me. They won't let me. I'm absolutely positive. I know that they'll probably let you have a polyamorous relationship with several characters, but I would put money on, like, maybe someone will tell me in the comments, but I would put money that they won't let me have both of them.
I don't know.
It's too much.
Like Lae'zel, she gets like really hot. I mean, I don't know. Every character in the game is like super horny very early on. They're just like, oh yeah, let's bone, let's go.
No, I think Lae'zel's probably the worst one. She came on strong. It was almost off-putting.
Oh yeah,
it was almost off-putting.
Listen, the thing about Lae'zel was like very early on in the game, she's like, "Oh, I want you so bad."
That animal
and
scent.
I was like, yeah, and I was like, not interested. And she, the offer expires by the end of the night. I was like, okay. Next morning, I go up to her and she's like, "Oh, I want you so bad." I was like, "I thought it expired last night." Fuck do you mean?
I saw some clips of people's playthrough and how Lae'zel just spends the whole rest of the game spiteful. It's like, if you might come to your senses soon. It's like the whole game she just spends being resentful that you didn't pick her.
Yeah, but everybody's like giga horny. But it is interesting that cutscene happened. There was a moment where, yeah, there's a lot of characters that they just don't care. They'll still keep trying to romance you, even though you're giga locked into another romance. They're still trying to get you.
I think I saw earlier that that was a bug or something, and that they patched it to be less that way recently.
I have no idea. But yeah, there's just so much really cool things that you can do in that game. Like just the fact that as a barbarian, you can pick up another enemy and beat the other enemy with the enemy that you picked up. Not even throwing them. You can just straight up pick them up and use them as a weapon. It's so satisfying.
I actually didn't know you could do that. That you don't just throw them, you actually use them to swing?
Yeah, you can use them to swing. It's kind of like throwing them. The animation is the same, but it's a different ability, and I think it has like different stats associated with them. Yeah. It's a little chair icon that shows up, which is use an improvised weapon. What's the improvised weapon? This guy.
This guy.
He's my improvised weapon. This guy right here. I've done so many crazy stuff with the throwing things too. It's just so hilarious.
On my first playthrough, when I was doing the fight the goblins thing, I lured them back to the, I made them think that they were going to attack the thing and I was going to betray the goblin camp, and then I sided with the tieflings. And so we went through that whole battle, and they had ogres and stuff. And I realized that this game was of an immense quality when one of the ogres came up and they grabbed a barrel from their inventory and they threw it at the wall, and then it hit a defender, and then out of the barrel popped up a goblin, and so it's now on top of the wall. And it's like, oh, this is amazing. This is one of the greatest games I've ever played.
Yeah, they do some crazy stuff with the combat for sure, which is what makes it even more frustrating whenever that stuff breaks in the third act. Oh. I mean, I killed an enemy by having him a very important enemy by having him stuck in a dance anime. I mean, this was not a bug. This is a spell that I can cast by basically forcing him to dance on top of grenades.
For this year, is there anything that you're excited to play?
I want to check out Lords of the Fallen. I'm not sure how that one's going to be. There was another game that I was super interested in, but I think that one got delayed to next year, which is Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. but that one got delayed to next year. So this year, I think it's Lies of P, and then Lords of the Fallen, and then I'm probably going to be picking away at some of my backlog stuff, as well as the whole Starfield thing made me anxious to get back into a couple of space games. There's Everspace 2 that came out this year that I want to check out. Still haven't gotten around to it. And I want to jump back into No Man's Sky as well, which I've already played at some point this year. But yeah.
I'm a little bit interested in Lords of the Fallen, but so what catches my attention with Remnant that is this whole co-op aspect to it, this heavy emphasis on co-op. Because Lords of the Fallen looks like the kind of game that has all the things I don't like about Soulslikes. And it's specifically that a lot of them don't scratch the same itch that the real Souls games do for me. Because
they don't. You're right.
They might have good combat a lot of the times, but I don't play Souls games just for good combat. It's also the level design, and I'm a lore person at heart. Like, even if I like Souls games and I like the PvP and I like the invasions and I like every aspect of it, the lore is a big issue for me. And a lot of these games, they fail in that department because they try to emulate FromSoft style and make a ambiguous story that's difficult to interpret with, item descriptions. And that narrative style, I think, only works if there's real depth to the story. Like, the story that you're piecing together actually has to be worth trying to understand. And a lot of the time for these games, it isn't. It's you spend a lot of time piecing together and understanding a story that was subpar. And I'm positive that's how the first Lords of the Fallen was. And I don't think I don't think that I want to.
The thing is,
do that.
this one is like from a different studio, is my understanding. So I'm curious to check it out. But usually for me, when it comes to a lot of Souls-like games, I think that the biggest thing for me is I'm a very much gameplay focused person, right? So I like to play games. Sure, I really love the crazy attention to detail that From Software puts on their stories.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the biggest draw for me is always going to be the gameplay. And one of the things that I notice when it comes to Souls-likes is that they seem to often take the wrong lessons from Souls games. They look at the Souls game and they hear what the community is saying, and everybody's saying like, "Oh my God, these games are so hard." When in reality, the very first videos I ever made for Dark Souls was explaining people this is not hard at all. Okay, this is not hard at all. People are just making a big deal about it. It is not that hard. Marketing is leaning into it. Sure, the game is really not that hard. Here's what you got to do. And at the end of the day, those games are not hard. I don't think Dark Souls is a hard game. I don't think Demon Souls is a particularly hard game. It has a couple of hard levels, like, for instance, the swamp level, particularly in the remaster. For some reason, I could not navigate the swamp level in the remaster to save my life. Like, in my playthrough, I died like 50 times in that map. And I was like, I've done this map a million times before. I don't know what's going on. But anyways, besides the point, I don't think those games are very hard, and they're very rewarding. So they're good at teaching you, like, do this, do that. Here's your reward. You were able to do it. You did this thing. Seemed insurmountable. Actually wasn't. Pretty good. And when it comes to Souls games, what they think, Souls likes, what they think is like, oh, we just need to make it hard. Like, really hard. Make it super hard. And it's like, that's not the most appealing part about Souls games. It really isn't. And it's always frustrating to see them go down that path. But,
have you found some of that in Lies of P?
Personally, yes, which is the reason why it's kind of like weird for me how so many people are like, oh, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I just get more frustrated than anything. But
because from watching your stream as an outsider, I was watching you fight that Archbishop boss for a while, and I was looking at his attack patterns, and I'm like, those attack patterns are weird. Like, it's like sudden. The attack patterns have a weird tempo to them. It's like, I don't think I've seen a tempo like that in a Souls game. I don't think a Souls games would have a tempo like that.
In a lot of these games, I have to actually, like, I'll lower the music just for me. So, like, the stream doesn't even notice that the music is lowered. But, like, I'll lower the whole game sound, and I will actually put music that, again, people can't hear. But, like, music so that I can focus on the fight without listening to the sounds of the fight,
Mm.
because I find a lot of the times the music in these games can get distracting and it can mess up my tempo completely, and I need to just like focus in a completely different way, which is it's weird and it never really feels particularly good when I'm doing that. But yeah, it's again, and the thing is, it could just be that at the end of the day, I'm getting worse at games that require super hard reflex and stuff like that. I never want to come out and just say, "Oh, this game is just freaking trash." Like that's not what I'm saying. It's just it hasn't clicked. It just hasn't clicked, and a lot of times Souls likes don't always click with me either.
Mm.
But I'll still like play them, whatever. And chat loves watching me die, so fine.
All right, we'll do it. Yeah.
They love watching me suffer and get upset for some reason. So sure, fine. I'll do it.
Do you like those other kinds of soul-like that I guess they're not really even souls-likes? The like things like Blasphemous. Try those.
The 2D ones is stuff that I really struggle with, like Hollow Knight as well.
Mhm.
I struggle with those games because I think I would have more fun playing them without streaming them, because I feel like I can't do proper commentary on them because I get lost too often.
Yeah.
It's weird because you'd figure in 2 dimensions should be easier than in 3D,
Yeah.
but it's like my brain is formatted for 3D, and when you put me in 2D, it's like I'm a fish out of water. I don't understand it. Like I think the last one that I did of those that I really enjoyed was Metroid Dread.
Mm.
Metroid Dread I liked a lot. I like that game.
So
But it was also short.
yes.
So
Actually,
it's a
Metroid,
shorter experience. It's easier.
I thought Metroid Dread was weirdly not. You don't get lost in Metroid Dread. I didn't get lost in Metroid Dread.
No,
You just.
not really.
It almost felt like a linear game. Even though I know it's not. Like I know logically it's not, but I always knew where to go somehow, even though it was almost unconscious. Like I just kept going
Yep.
and going in a direction. It seemed to work out every time.
Yep. And it's like in the case of Hollow Knight, for instance, which I tried doing like a playthrough. I think if I had streamed it, that probably would have worked better. But recording it offline, it was hard to get into the mindset like, oh, let's record this thing, because I feel like I don't have a whole lot to say when I'm playing it. It's just like I just want to play the game. I don't want to talk too much about it because I don't understand a lot of what's happening. So it's whatever. But it's just weird. There's a disconnect there, which is why I haven't been able to finish it. But I think at some point I'm probably going to play that without recording, just that I can enjoy it, because I do like it.
Mm-hmm.
But I struggle with the 2D versions of those games for whatever reason.
Is there other Metroidvanias that you like other than Metroid Dread? Castlevania?
I didn't play Castlevania at all. There was another one. Forget the name.
Ori?
I don't. No, not Ori. I didn't finish Ori either. It's like if you go to the 3D realm, Metroid Prime I love.
Ooh, yeah.
I played the crap out of Metroid Prime 1 and 2 and then never played 3 because I got burned out because I played 1 and 2 back to back.
3's the worst one. You didn't need to play it. You didn't need to play that.
Really?
Anyway. Yeah, it's the worst one.
Okay, well, there you go. Now I know.
Metroid Prime 2 is one of my favorite games ever. Love that game.
I loved Metroid Prime 1 and 2. And I'm not talking about the remaster. I played like the originals on the Wii.
Mhm.
On the Wii, not even on, because those were on Nintendo 64 as well, right?
They were on the GameCube, and then
The GameCube, yeah,
they did Wii versions.
Yeah, I played the Wii version, and I love the Wiimote aiming, dude. I was like, dude, this is like the best thing ever. This is the future. And I can't believe that that's still not the standard.
Hey. Are you a gyro guy? Are you a gyro person?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But listen, I think that gyro was more precise on the Wii than it is on the Switch.
Ooh.
Yeah, because of the IR tracking, I think was more precise than the gyros on the Switch.
I think
I definitely noticed more precision when I was playing it on the Wii.
I don't remember anymore, but I'm a big gyro
Oh yeah,
lover. Like
100%.
I almost can't play any. Like I've ruined myself. Like I've ruined myself because I you know how we talk about how PC games work. A lot of the times when I'm playing a game that has aiming, I need to make it work with a gyro. Like so like when I play Remnant 2, when I buy it, I'm going to have to set up my controller to accept gyro commands as if it was a mouse, and it's gonna be a big thing. Like unless someone else has done it and I can get a tutorial, or I can see some a lot of the times the community will do it in a Steam template. Will be on it and you can just pick that. But I can't even play a game. I can't aim with a stick anymore. It makes me sick. It grosses me out.
This is like the weirdest thing for me, which is when I first saw the technology on the Wii, I was so convinced like this is the future. Like 3 years from now, we're not even gonna remember what it was like. And we're talking like this was probably 2008 or 2009, something like that. I was thinking to myself, bro, like 3 years from now, this whole aiming with the right analog stick, this is gone forever. There's no shot. And it's like, how is it possible? And people complain about it. They're like, oh, gyro aiming is so imprecise. Bro, what are you talking about? Like, you're insane.
Anybody that thinks gyro is bad should go play Splatoon. Like go play Splatoon on the Switch. And
I don't even think Splatoon's the best example. I didn't think that the Splatoon, again, there was something about the ones on the Wii that was just way better.
Well, no, I mean, like
there were two.
I cite Splatoon because everybody plays with the gyro on Splatoon, and if
because it's better. If you play with the stick, you'll get rocked. You'll get crushed by those 12-year-olds. Like you don't want to fight those 12-year-olds. They will destroy you if you don't use the gyro. And the interesting thing is, like, if somebody were to put like proper gyro support on Fortnite, and you put like a proper competitive player that knows how to play, they would rock everybody else. You use mouse, you use stick, they will rock your face off, hands down. The problem is that nobody does it. Nobody does it.
I don't know if it's better than mouse. Like I'm not willing to say that, but I'm 100% willing to say that it's just obviously better than the stick.
Oh, it's better than a stick. A million times better than a stick. You're right. Maybe the mouse is a bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like with a proper setup.
Yeah.
And once you get it into muscle memory,
I think it's comparable.
I don't know if it wouldn't be better.
I think it's comparable.
I don't know if it wouldn't be better.
I hate the mouse people fight me on this, but I'm like, it's not that much better. Like even if the mouse is better, it's not by that much. Like we're narrowing it at that point.
The problem is, right? People have used the mouse for shooters for how many years?
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So it's like, oh yeah, you've been playing shooters with your mouse for like 1 decade. You're gonna give what? You're gonna give 10 minutes.
You give 10 minutes to the gyro. You don't give it a fair shake.
You give 10 minutes. Exactly. You give 10 minutes to the gyro for your 10 years of mouse. Of course, dude. At that point, if you give 10 years of controller and you give it 10 minutes with a mouse, you're also gonna suck with a mouse. It's the same thing.
I would recommend
the problem is that people aren't willing to give it a shot.
The people that have access to a PC and have a PlayStation controller or something, go to Aim Labs. Like download Aim Labs for free. And compare your aiming with your right stick. Compare the score you get in Aim Labs with the right stick, and then set up a gyro for it, and then compare those two scores together, and you'll see in half an hour the difference. An enormous, huge difference. It'll be over. Yep. You'll be convinced.
Yeah, 100%. Like gyro is the future.
It's just taking a while to get there. It's taking a while to get there.
It's just never going to happen, unfortunately, because we're all resistant to change.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
We live in the gyroless universe. In some universe, people realize that the gyro was superior to whatever the hell we're doing. And I think it might even be better, like, for your hands. I don't like using a mouse and keyboard for everything. Like I don't want to sit on my desk and play on my desk with my mini monitors and my workstation and everything. I don't want to be here. I want to go relax over there on my bed or on my couch, and I can't do that with a mouse and keyboard. I can with a gyro controller and have comparable aim.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Just out of curiosity, while we're on the topic of like Nintendo stuff.
Yeah.
Did you ever play Xenoblade? Any of the Xenoblade games?
I have played all of them. I've played all the Xenoblade games.
Did you play Xenoblade Chronicles X?
Except that one. X after that one.
You have failed me. You need to play that one. That one's so good.
It's not that I don't want to, but it's on the Wii U. What am I going to do about that?
Yeah. You have to do that dirty thing that we talked about.
Yep. We have to emulate it. And I don't. How was the Wii U gamepad for that? Did they use that heavily? Because I'm not sure.
They did.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's
there's
one
like
where I completely
there's
agree
like
with
a
you.
whole resource minigame where you'll actually like put these things that extract resources from the map and whatnot, and they heavily used the pad for that. But the interesting thing is you could play the whole game on the pad.
Okay.
So you didn't need a screen. So technically speaking, I don't know if you can like emulate it, like if it's just running on the pad, but that would work.
I could. I emulated the Wind Waker remake for the thing, and that one used the pad, but I would have to switch screens like to use the pad, and I hated doing that. Really hated.
Yeah, that is annoying.
I really hated doing that. So that's one of those ones where I'm like, I might just try and find my Wii U.
But Xenoblade Chronicles X is potentially, especially if you say you like exploration, it has such good. It doesn't give you like crazy quest lines like Bethesda games, but like you just see the vistas and it kind of makes you want to go there. And then they just let your characters jump outrageously high for some strange reason. And so it just feels good because they run super fast and they jump really high. And so that means that you can kind of like finagle your way through a lot of the map, end up in zones with like level 90 monsters that you definitely shouldn't be there. But it's just like roaming around, exploring. Like I spent so much time doing that. It was so satisfying.
I actually, now I'm remembering, you had a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 review, and one of your complaints was that they kept gating you to where you,
yes,
where you can go.
Yes, I hated that. That's still one of my biggest complaints about that game. It's like invisible walls everywhere. Yeah. It's like, no, can't go here.
Can't go here.
Go do the story. It's like, what do you mean? That's what I've always done in every Xenoblade game. The second they let me loose, I just go wherever the hell I want. And in that game, it's like, no, you can't go there. Go here first. And people were telling me, well, that's just the beginning hours. Like, I'm getting this like 100 hours in, and there's still zones that they don't let me go to. What do you mean? It's insane. I haven't finished it yet, by the way.
You haven't finished the game? You haven't finished it?
No. I'm 125 hours in.
Wow.
I've done like every single side quest that I can up to the point that I'm on.
So
I'm like in chapter 6.
So have you done the DLC that they've given you?
No.
Okay. All right.
I know that one's important. I want to work through that. It's just lots of other games.
I did beat it, but I didn't do the DLC yet.
I can't wait to jump into that to see how it connects to all the other ones.
So since you played it all, what's your favorite out of all of them?
Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Wow, X. That's the big one.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, 3 is probably my least favorite one.
Okay. What about?
So here's the problem is, right, because I haven't finished it, I can't properly comment on the story.
Yeah.
I only know what I've seen of the story so far, which I think I'm shortly after the big twist that happens, right?
Yeah.
You probably know the one I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The end of chapter 5 or whatever the hell it's called.
Yes.
The prison cutscene, all of that.
Yeah.
So the way that I look at it is Xenoblade Chronicles 1 has the best story.
There you go.
Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has the best combat.
Mm-hmm.
Xenoblade Chronicles X has the best exploration. And Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has none of those.
None of those things.
It's good. It's a good Xenoblade game because like it's the situation almost like Dark Souls 2. I still like Dark Souls 2.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's the worst of the Dark Souls games, but I still think it's a good game. Yeah. And Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is kind of in that room for me because like one of the things that I don't like about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I find interesting because I've been told that they removed this in the DLC, is what do they call it? Ouroboros? I fucking hate it.
Oh.
I can't stand it. I can't stand having to transform into Ouroboros because it's like I'm in this super fast mode and I'm doing all of these crazy abilities. And then, okay, now swap to the big sluggish machines, like, oh, super mega slow. It's like, I can't stand it, dude. I was like, no, I don't like it at all.
I don't like Noah. I hate Noah. I don't like him. I like Rex more than a lot of people don't like Rex. They think he's annoying. They think that he's
I love Rex. Rex is amazing.
I never had a problem with Rex specifically.
Yep.
If I had a problem with
Rex, Shulk, love those.
Yeah. No, I don't like Noah. I don't like him at all.
I'm not a big fan of Noah either. Yeah.
I even like the side characters more. I like the Mio and I don't remember what's the black guy's name. What's the black guy's name?
I don't know. Listen, I have a terrible memory.
Yeah.
You're going to be asking the wrong person.
Well, I like him a lot more. Noah's got this whole attitude. Like even from the beginning, it's like, oh man, look at me.
Wait, is it Lance?
Lance is no. No.
Big sword guy?
No. The guy with the little paper things that he uses to fight.
Oh, Tyon?
Yeah.
Tyon, I think.
Yeah, Tyon.
Tyon, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, Tyon's cool. Yeah, Tyon's cool. I like him a lot.
I liked all the other characters, but Noah just off puts me. He's not an off seater, he's off putting.
That's a good one. That is good, yeah.
Like even from the beginning of the game, it's like, oh, war is bad. We shouldn't kill people. Let me melancholically look into the distance while I play my song. And like, I always know better than everybody. Like, it's like this is a teachable moment for all of my party members. I'm sick of him. Like, I hate him. The entire story. I didn't like his attitude.
Yeah, I don't think he was a fantastic character from what I've seen so far. But then again, I think it's also in the context of like what those characters have gone through, the fact that they only get to live like a couple of years or whatever.
Yeah.
So he probably hasn't had enough time to mature, and that's kind of the way that they represent him. But at the same time, Tyon is a much more matured character, and in a way, the one what do you call it? The one-sided nature of lands is also more interesting. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I think I'm starting to lose my voice. We talked about a lot of things. I think this should be a good place to stop. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate the invite.
Mm-hmm. This has been the Yggdrasil podcast. Thank you all very much for listening.